Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups, limited beliefs, and situationships. Go to writemac.com if you want to book a session. Let's get into it. Can I fix my ex? Good question, right? Some of you might be thinking, oh, no, I couldn't do that. Some might be thinking, that never works. I've read an article about that. And it might surprise you. I got 8 points here that I'm going to go over. And it might really surprise you with the first point I'm going to make. Number one, maybe. Depends on the personality, depends on your role in the relationship, depends on the problem. So sometimes you're thinking, well, yeah, no, I can fix them. If you have an authority role in the relationship, for example, let's say that your partner doesn't have a lot of higher education, and you do. You have a PhD. You went to the best school in the country, the best school in the state. Okay, so you have an academic background, and they really like that about you, and they really respect that about you. And the partner you're with has a bachelor's degree, and they're having trouble pushing themselves to get that master's degree, get that credential, get that next level. Okay. Well, if you have a PhD and you've been through school, you have overcome being scared of taking on a master's program. If they've done it already, they might be able to help you fix that problem, that lack of confidence. Okay. And they're an authority figure because they're a PhD. They've mastered school, right? So certain things you can help them fix. Okay. So it's not just simple, stupid, oh, you could never fix your partner. You could never fix your ex. You can do it if it's a specific problem that you're good at and they respect you as an authority figure in it, right? If they need to build a new house and you're a contractor, they're probably going to respect what you have to say about doing and what you're going to do to build that house. Okay, so it really counts on what the problem is. I wouldn't just scrap it as no way. Okay. Number two, if it's personality related or pattern related, probably not. Okay, so a lot of times, a lot of these problems that we have, okay, they're personality related. They're who they are. It's who they've always been. And sometimes when you're in the dating process, the first 6 months, 9 months, getting to know someone, and by the way, 6 to 9 months, you're still getting to know them. So sometimes you get surprised, sometimes you get upset. But the reality is they're still under review, right? So you don't know their full personality of who they can be in certain situations. Now, patterns are run in jobs, are run in relationships, are run with families. So what that means is if this problem happens, this worked before, so I'm going to do it again. So I just had a client yesterday where they had a lot of makeup to breakup, breakup to makeup, breakup to makeup. We just kept breaking up. If you have that pattern, and it's a pattern because it's happening repeatedly, it's happening over similar reasoning, the individual that initiates the breakup is telling themselves, well, when I did this before, this is what happened. So I can count on getting their attention, winning the argument, and having them say sorry to me. Those are usually things that people do when they use breaking up as a way to negotiate arguments, right? So if it's pattern related or personality related, you're probably not, because they don't even know they're doing it. It's kind of like if someone has the pattern or habitual thing to take a shower in the morning, brush their teeth, wash their face. These are things that you're not going to break. And those are good habits, right? But they've done them for so long, it's going to take something catastrophic to make them change those things. So usually if it's personality related or pattern related, and they don't even know they're doing it. And if you accuse them of doing it, they won't know. They have to feel like, all right, I have this issue, I got to figure it out. And usually it's better if they go to a therapist or coach or an outside party that tells them than you, because they feel like you're biased. Number three, look at their parents. This seems obvious, but this is what most therapists will do. They'll ask questions about your parents and family. and look at if they emulate them. So some people can have the worst father in the world, and know that that person was abusive or verbally abusive or put them down a lot, and they can become that person, but not as extreme, not in the same situations, and they don't even know it. Okay? They don't even know it. If you're around that parent, you can see that. Also, if they still have a close relationship or spend a lot of time with the parents and they value the parents' opinion, they'll be more apt to be like the parents. Now, if someone moves to another country, another state, takes on a new life, new identity, they see their mom and dad, or just their dad, or just their mom for Christmas, for Thanksgiving, for Easter, they have more of an ability to not emulate their parents because they're going to be in different environments and different places and different interactions. If they talk to their mom every day and they're in another state, they're probably going to be emulating them and being influenced by them. And if that's the case, you're probably not going to fix that. Because if someone's close to their parents, even if you feel like it's a toxic relationship or it's not good, you stepping in and saying that, it's a big no-no in most cases. People aren't going to choose a partner of a year, 2 years over a parent that raised them since they were little. Okay. Number 4, very important. Do they believe they need fixing? Is it just you that believes that, or do they? This is probably the number one question. Do they believe that what they're doing is wrong? And by the way, it's not just that they say sorry. It's not just that they kind of like, oh yeah, I know I leave the food out in the kitchen and I don't put it in the fridge. Like sometimes people just say things to kind of just, all right, give me a break. They're not saying I have a problem. They're not saying that. They're just saying like, in order for you to let this go, I'm just going to say sorry. We know people like that, right? And the way people realize they need to fix something is they have a consequence. Someone messes with their money, their finances, someone messes with their family, someone messes with their housing, some kind of deep consequence that tells you, hey, this pattern, this habitual thing you keep doing is a fucking problem, right? Number 5, what qualifies you to fix them? Big question. Big question. So right now you can go read a lot of articles on narcissism, breakups, YouTube channels like mine, and you can get a lot of knowledge. The problem is you're playing two sides of the coin. It's like if you were on a basketball team, right? And you're a player on the team, and you got another player on the team, and then you got the coach, right? And then you got the assistant coach, and you go over to one of the players and you're like, hey man, you're doing this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And the player might go, well, you're not the fucking coach, right? You're my teammate. Now, depending on how good of teammates they are and what the age differences and experience, that might differ. But you get my point. It's the same thing. Someone that, is not going to receive that information from you the way that you think because you read an article, right? Because you're going to be a little bit biased. Now, having a discussion about the specific things that you have issues with rather than labeling them a narcissist, which most narcissists label other people narcissists. They really like to get out in front of it, which is a narcissistic trait. It's kind of ironic because they're the first ones to call someone else a narcissist. Number 6, what do they want to fix about you? Great question. If it's you lecture me too much, you tell me too many things that are wrong with me, maybe you're looking for too many things, right? That's a good question. Like if you start making a list about all these things that you have a problem with, what would they like you to change? So you don't just think you're this holy grail of partners, this incredibly flawless piece of human creation, right? So what would they want to fix about you? Because you could probably make a list if you're honest with yourself. And then if you look at it like, what are you doing subconsciously? Subconsciously means you're not really thinking about it, you're just doing it, right? What are you doing in the relationship that you're not noticing until you wrote that down? Like, actually, I do that a lot. I kind of check out at night, or I kind of don't listen. 7, could you take another approach than fixing them? This is a great question to ask also. So You look at it like, oh, this is a problem, we're going to fix it. Is there another approach from fixing it, such as accepting it? Okay. Even if you don't want to do that, write that out. Like, all right, wait a minute. If I accepted this, can I live with it? And is it that big a problem? Can I just accept the fact that they're a sloppy eater that chews with their mouth open? Could I accept that long term? Some may say no. Or can I just live with that? Could I, instead of having a problem with the way they eat and telling them to stop eating with their mouth open, can I maybe suggest to them that they're maybe have to look into their breathing habits, right? Is there another way that I'm not approaching this that could work, that's not just telling them they're wrong or they have a problem or complaining? Number 8, is it possible to meet someone that you don't have to fix so much? So if you have all these problems with an individual, is it possible that you could meet someone that you don't have to fix so much? And this is a little bit of a trick question, because doing this for a long time, having a few relationships on my own, there's always going to be things in year 2, year 3, year 4 that you're like, God damn, I wish they didn't do this. I wish they could. And there's answers. And the ironic thing to the problems that you believe are problems, the answers you see as answers, they might not agree with. But then down the road, they might find their own way out of that, right? They might come to their own conclusion on how they fix that. It's kind of amazing when you look at someone that had maybe bad eating habits. This is a big one, right? Someone that was massively overweight. You see them, maybe this could be a friend, family, or colleague, not just a partner. You see them 2 or 3 years later, and you're like, damn, you lost weight. You look great. And they've always been out of shape. They've always ate fast food. You know, it's not by accident that they were extremely obese or fat. Okay. You run into them. What happened? You as a friend or a colleague never told them, hey, you're fat. You need to change this. Hey, you need to eat healthy. Telling someone that's overweight to eat healthy is such a surface-based, obvious thing. Hey, why don't you exercise more? Surface-based. There's something way deeper that person has. Now, if they come up with excuses like, oh, I have a high metabolism. Oh, you know what? I just can't go without eating a hamburger from McDonald's once a week. I just can't. So what changed them? In most cases, it'll be something like, I had a health scare. I was looking at diabetes, the doctor told me, hey, look, you can lose your leg. Like, this isn't a game. It's not just that we have medicine that'll make you feel better. This thing can get elevated to a point where you could lose a limb. Now, that might motivate someone to maybe, and then get some structure. And by the way, don't discount the fact that you have a doctor involved that's an authority figure, that person will say, this is an expert. It's not your partner that's, Joe Johnson that has a job at a bowling alley, at a supermarket, as a lawyer, and he's telling you how to eat healthy. See what I mean? Someone needs to find their reasons to fix their problems, and usually it's going to be outside of just you and the relationship. Now, sometimes they'll fix the problem when they're facing divorce. Now, if they're facing divorce where they lose half the house, they don't see their kids half the time, they might be motivated to fix the problems. Now, if they're in a situation where they're rich already, they got a nanny, they don't get to see the kids half the time anyways, they might go, hey, no problem. Have my lawyer contact yours. You can get the house in the Hamptons. I'll take the house in Tahoe. Because their consequences aren't that high. They're like, look, I don't need to fix myself or anything like that. Does that make sense? All right. We got Rye Flint. Are you in a dark alley? No, just trying something new with the background. I haven't perfected this background. Probably going to make a new set coming soon. But for now, in a new room, in a new place. So why not? Let's go dark today, Rye. Rob, how you doing? It's been a while, my friend. Most people are not qualified at all. Absolutely. And what I would add to that not being qualified is just check yourself if you're biased, right? You have this partner, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, or wife you haven't been getting intimate with for 2 months, right? You're really upset. You're taking it personal. You're saying, oh, they never even try, or they just dress lazy. You have all these reasons why shit is bad. But really, you're not like, well, maybe I'm dressing pretty shoddy. Maybe I'm not in the greatest shape. Maybe it's not all about me. So whatever you come up with, and your mind's going to build a case for whatever you want. It might not be accurate, right? And getting an outside opinion that's non-biased is helpful because they're objective, because their feelings aren't involved. This is why when you go to writemac.com and you book a session, for me to come from my standpoint, it's easy to be objective. We're not best friends. I can look at your situation and not have my feelings involved. There's a lot of value in that. And when feelings are involved and emotions are involved, people come up with erratic, crazy reasons to support their emotionally unstable feeling. Someone's scared to lose you. They think you're going to break up with them. They might come up with all these ideas and you're like, where'd you come up with this? This isn't even true. And what their mind is doing is they're just supporting emotional instability. And then when you start arguing about those things and giving them relevance, giving them substance, giving them value, now you're in the snake pit with them and you start to even maybe believe some of the crap they're spewing out. Odd Carlo, how you doing? So you made it to Texas already? San Antonio? Home of the Alamo? Never give a label, explain it. And I would say that that's great. I've talked about that before. Be specific about the problems. How's it going over there, Odd Carlo? Do you like it so far? First impressions? All right. I'm the one with 5 kids. Quick update. She agreed to therapy with me, then posted photos of her and her new boyfriend and deleted my family and some of my friends from her Facebook. All right, Josh, this is going to get really hectic really quick. I do remember you. You did come on the live stream before. Maybe we can talk again on this live stream in a little bit. I have a few stories I want to unpack. You're dealing with someone that you have zero trust in, that's playing with you when you have 5 kids together. I just want you to start looking at the other angles to this. If this doesn't work out and you pull the plug on this and you're done, start the process of at least seeing, I don't know if you're married officially or not, but seeing a lawyer about your rights. And I would go to 3 different lawyers. Go to 3 different lawyers about your rights in this situation with the kids, because I know you care about that the most. You got to start entertaining, maybe that's not the right word, processing that this might not work out. You're trying to work it out. You're trying to be the adult in the situation. But right now, this kind of behavior, you're losing pieces of your soul, bud. And the problem with it, when you keep taking hits like this, and I get it, you got 5 kids. It's not just in the name of you. I get it. It's bigger than that. But you got to go outside of this and go, all right, if I have to get out of this relationship, what's my first step to not accept this any longer? Because really, this is not a good situation for your kids either, right? And she obviously has to see it through. But this kind of behavior, it's not just manipulative, it's vindictive, it's mean-spirited, and are highly erratic. And so if you're going to be the adult in the situation, you got to start doing adult things. Like I said, go talk to 3 lawyers. Hey, what are my rights here? Hey, what am I looking at for taking custody of these kids? Just to see where you stand if you go that route. Because what you're doing now is not working. It seems to be one of those things where she's trying to hurt you. Okay, and that's a really bad situation to be in. Some people, and that means that somewhere in the past she felt really hurt by you, embarrassed or upset, and now she's getting you back. I think you talked about that when you came on the live stream, that she felt like you've been the one to do that to her before. But like doing stuff like this, where you agree to therapy and then you post photos with a new boyfriend and delete ones of your family, you just can't stick around on the sidelines and be like, hey, maybe we can work this out. You got to go on offense right now for you. And I don't mean offense of playing her game, because what she's doing is she's playing dirty. This is a dirty game she's playing. It's not in any way mature. It's not in any way good for your kids. And the more you partake in it, the more she's going to push it, because it's just not ending. And even if, let's say that she sees the light, or this guy that is her new boyfriend doesn't work out and you guys get back together, you guys are going to probably have more problems down the road, because you're going to still be bitter and have some resentment. So you got to start accepting, hey man, if I go all in, and it's gonna hurt like hell, and there's gonna be some problems along the way. But the alternative is what? Sitting around and letting her joystick the situation around? No way. Yes, and now every time I throw my hands up and tell her she wins, I'm tired of her hurting. She responds with, now you know how I feel. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So she's creating a situation of revenge for maybe something you cheated on her in the past. You made her feel bad. Here's the thing. Don't play the game. Just go, hey, you know what? And this is where guys get it wrong. Oh, by being nicer, right? I knew a guy years ago that was going to get divorced. Okay. They had multiple kids too. I think it was 3 or 4 kids. Not the same situation as you. He wasn't excited about it. Different situation. The woman wasn't with another guy, but she was done. She was moving on. He was upset. He was trying to be a good guy. The overcompensation actually turns the woman off. And it's counterintuitive, because you're like, all right, I'll start being nice. This will work. No, it's unattractive sometimes. If you weren't nice or over the top accommodating when you first met, that's probably not what she's looking for. This particular woman that you've been dealing with, it seems like she likes attention. She likes to be validated, and she'll go to the next guy that gives her the most attention. Right? Am I right on that? Now, you on the sidelines are like, well, I'll give you more attention. You're old news to her. If you ever get back together, you might be doing the same thing to her. So right now, she's taking the last 3 years and balling it all up and giving it all to me at once. Well, whether that's karma or whether you deserve it or not, you got fucking 5 kids, dude. 2 kids under 2 years old. It's not the time to play, immature teenage love games where I'm going to get you back, right? Don't partake in it, because you'll make it worse. So getting back to this story I told you about, this guy was facing a divorce, right? He's trying things out. He's like, oh, I got a hotel with her. I took her out to dinner. And this guy's a tough guy. He's a mechanic. He works with his hands. He was a pretty good dad, but like, he had an edge to him. He was a little bit of a jerk sometimes, but he ruled the roost. And his wife just wanted to be single again. She was hanging out with single friends. She was tired that he didn't make as much money than her. I can go on, right? So he tries. He puts in all this effort. He changes his personality. He goes out of his way. And then finally he goes, you know what? I've been thinking about it. If you want to get a divorce, all right, I'll go get a lawyer. But you're not getting the house. I'm going to split that with you. You actually make a little bit more money than I do, so I'll take some of that too. And I'm moving. And I'm going to move. I'm going to move to my uncle's house. And it was like 2 states over. And she was like, completely flipped the tables in one conversation. It was manipulative. But you know what he was doing? He was saying to her, if you want to get a divorce, fine, but it's not going to go the way you think. I'm not just going to give you the house and move into an apartment and see the kids half the week and run errands and do this and do that. You're getting none of me. And in fact, you kind of want the kids, take the kids. Now, deep down inside, he didn't want this. But he was like, look, so what I'm saying to you is, go ahead, have the boyfriend. Release her. Go ahead, be with him. I'll take the kids. You got 5. You got to figure out how that's going to work. If you're going to take, I believe 3 aren't yours. But you need to readdress the situation and stop trying to get her back and look at possibilities if you let her go. And then she has to entertain the idea that you're not there. That's what happened in this case. This guy did that. She was shocked because she was used to getting chased for the last couple months, used to being wined and dined. And now he just flipped it. He's like, you know what? Because she dropped the, hey, you need to move out. Maybe I think it's best for the kids. He goes, no, we'll just go straight to divorce. I want half the house. You also make a little bit more money than I am. He didn't play Mr. Nice Guy in the divorce because he was like, you want this. So what I would say is just entertain the idea. You want a new boyfriend? Fine. Have a new boyfriend. Doesn't mean you go out and have a new girlfriend. Have another counter to this where you're like, how am I going to make this work for me? Does that make sense? Guys do this all the time, by the way. I've helped many guys out that are facing divorce, and they're like, oh, I just think I'll give her the house. Oh, like we got about $100,000 in the bank, and I think I'll just give that to her. It's like, if you're doing that because you think she's going to come back and she's screwing some other dude, no. Go for what's fair and what's yours. Split that $100,000, split the house, because in 5 years, when some other dude's living in your house, spending that $100K, she's going to be with someone else. You're going to be pissed. And then you also put it to her like, hey, there's more consequences to this than you just screwing around. You're going to lose too. And really, from the behavior you're telling me about, you just need to get out of this. This is vindictive. It's mean-spirited. It's immature. It's impulsive, meaning she's not thinking things through. If this doesn't end now, it's going to end in a year. If it doesn't end in 2 years, it's inevitable. And it sucks. When I read this, like, I'm with you. This isn't easy. This isn't something that I'm like, oh yeah, man, just kick her to the curb. Have her for the streets. No. But look, you seem like the adult, mature one in the situation. Prove it. Prove it. Those kids need a really good dad right now. Step up. Put yourself as a dad first, because right now, this current situation, and get out in front of your rights for your kids, man. That's why I said go see 3 lawyers. Don't play around. Don't try to negotiate with her right now. Her negotiations are me, and how do I hurt you. Stop the bleeding. And you're young enough. You seem like you're doing well enough. You can come out of this, man. All right, let me get in these stories, and then we'll get back to this. And if we have time, I'll put you on the live stream. Coach Mac, I'm ready to go in full no contact. I just want to ask you, what's your take on a breakup? I recently broke up 5 days ago, and I'm now feeling relieved because there was so much toxic behavior that I can't list it all in this story. But I'll just give you the highlights. Well, I'd highly recommend to book a session with myself when you're post-breakup, even though it's only been 5 days, just to air out 2 to 3 hours of all those stories actually is like throwing up your bad feelings, okay? Like, if you think about it, you're like, oh, all this toxic behavior, all these things she's done to me, and you haven't shared them with someone over 2 or 3 hours, you need to get those feelings out of you, right? I got official with my girlfriend 3 years ago. She had many good qualities, and to the outsider, she'd seemed to be a goody two-shoes. Haven't heard that one in a while. She's a devout Buddhist that meditates and believes in karma. Okay. Sounds solid from the outside, doesn't it? There's a lot of people I know that, oh, I'm a Buddhist. It's like, okay, you read a book or you go to temples or what do you do? I'm in saying that she'll reference this a lot when someone or myself appears to be doing her wrong. The problem is that she assumes her perspective is always correct. That would be called self-righteous, which isn't really completely being Buddhist. I'd agree. I've told her this, and it just ignites her into all kinds of bizarre reasonings for how she acts about things. All right, so right there, it's one thing when you argue. It's another thing when you argue and you feel like someone's coming up with completely heinous, bizarre reasonings, okay, that means that you guys don't line up very well. It's one thing when you don't agree on something. When you just think something's bizarre, that's a strong word. Saying that, you got to bite your tongue quite a bit, because probably some of the things that she's bringing up, you don't even know how to react to it. I find myself explaining things in situations that repeatedly prove that we may be from different planets. I don't think that's a good thing, bud. Then somehow we end up making up, and she will say sorry and admit that she got emotionally wrapped up in the argument. I then accept the apology, and we usually always hug and then eventually get intimate. So there you go. You got a pattern you're running. I know you mentioned patterns, recognizing your patterns. I think this is ours. Okay, so you got this pattern you're running. Now that you know about it, do you like the pattern? Some guys might go, oh, every time we make up, we have incredible intimacy. All right, you got something at the end of the tunnel. She gets triggered or upset about something. In most cases, I find it dramatic or over the top, what it is. Then she stonewalls me, basically ignores me and stops talking to me. Then I'll make an effort to cheer her up. Maybe tickling her or doing a funny dance. Sometimes that snaps her out of it. And then once she breaks out of whatever is bothering her, she's fine and actually even more lovey-dovey. It's like two extremes. I think I know I can create that happiness with us in any situation, but recently I decided I'm not going to do this pattern anymore. Well, good for you. I mean, the thing about a pattern like this is it's 0 to 100, right? So someone that's highly emotional, that can get really happy, can get really low. Right? And so you know how to get her back. And really, it's a trance state, like what you have in hypnosis. She's stuck with whatever you did that did her wrong or upset her. She can't let it go. And her mind's just fixated on that. It's like when you see someone like this and they're daydreaming and they're stuck, and then you do something to snap them out of it. Well, if you say, hey, there's a purple cow, their mind will be like, what? And it'll break the trance. So when you say that you're doing this dance, or you say that you tickle her, you're breaking her trance. So if she's a person that can get very stuck on things, what she's stuck on, it's almost like a repeat of a movie over and over in her head, or a repeat of a set of thoughts. And when people are like that, kids can be like that, right? A kid will be, I want an ice cream. I want an ice cream. I want an ice cream. It's like, hey, I want an ice cream. Like, they can't let it go because that's what they want. And they're going to keep on. They're going to keep on. And if you break the trance and you're like, hey, there's an orange castle over there, they might go, huh? And they won't immediately go back to asking you for the ice cream. They'll look for the orange castle. Now their mind has just went somewhere else. It's broken up that clogged sink and I've told people to do this when they're with immature people. Sometimes they just do something to break the trance, because people don't realize you're stuck. You're fixated on the bad. And that's exactly what's happening here. And when you tickle her or you do a crazy dance, you break it. And then you guys both know, like, all right, we really don't want to break up. Let's make up. And then that's when that lovey-dovey stuff transpires. There's a lot of people in relationships like this, and they're okay with it. It's certainly not abusive. The problem is one day someone gets sick of it and they think the pattern's going to run, and then the other person says, you know what? Oh, I'm serious this time. And that can be a really hard fall. Stops talking to me, then I'll make an effort to cheer her up. Okay. It's like two extremes. I think I know I can create what happens, that happiness with us in any situation. But recently I decided I'm not going to do this pattern anymore. I try to turn her around, but I was thinking, what am I really doing this for? To stay in a relationship where I keep hitting potholes that are messing up my car? Or do I just try to find another road to drive on? Great fucking metaphor, my friend. Analogy, whatever you want to call it. It's a choice, right? You can go over that road with all those potholes, and maybe that's a shortcut to some place you want to go, or you can find a smoother road. Obviously, you like cars. And the thing is, I've been in other relationships that this pattern wasn't evident at all. I know it's not just me. Okay, so you know that's a question I usually ask people. Has this happened to you before? Yet I've been partaking in this for so long. Shout out to you, because in hearing your content and watching quite a bit of videos, I came to understand that this wasn't just happening, but that we are all running patterns, and this wasn't a good one, or isn't a good one. And now that I'm broken up, I do miss her. There you go. The funny thing is people can have all the reasons in the world to break up, build their case, and I don't care who you are. If you've got a heart, some compassion, you had strong feelings, once you get in that breakup tank, it's tough. It's harder than you think. I know there will be a point where she'll be sorry and she'll hug me. And since we always get back together, I didn't mention we've broken up 5 times in the last 2 years. Well, that's a problem, because when you break up 5 times, you think that you're always going to get back together. And the reality is someone might get tired of that and you're going to be left holding the bag. How do I overcome this pattern and I don't fall into the moment where we make up and things are fine and dandy, even great, but then now I know this will just keep happening again? All right, so first step here. This is good. You're aware of the pattern. Step 1, accept that you're a part of it. Accept that you're getting something from it. You're getting certainty or partial certainty that you know, I've done this, this, and this before and got this result. Okay, so you're even saying it. Oh, I know she's going to come back. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I don't want to scare you or anything. Now, if she does come back, you got to ask yourself, can I eliminate her coming back? Because probably if you're in that situation, she comes over, she's dressed to the nines, she looks good, she looks sexy, she looks hot. It's been a week. You've been a dormant volcano, right? What's going to happen? Oh, yeah, right. Okay. You guys hook up and you're back together. I don't have a problem with it. There's no abuse here. There's no craziness here. You're the one that's saying, I'm tired of this pattern. You probably aren't going to make it relevant to her because she's right in the middle of it and she's not the one partaking in it. The part I don't like is that you're having situations here where you guys, you think you're from different planets. Okay. Your perspectives are completely off. If that's the case, it's really hard to have good chemistry and connection. Obviously, there's attraction if intimacy is good. For men, whether they admit it or not, attraction and intimacy supersede connection, chemistry, and trust a lot of times. A lot of times. Okay? And so that's what keeps winning. Now, what you need to do is, all right, if I'm going to go all in on this, if I'm going to have confidence that I can find a better road with no potholes, or just a better woman that isn't from a different planet that I don't have these constant fights to get intimate with. I shouldn't say fights to get intimate with. Make up to break up to where we have incredible intimacy. Maybe that helps. I'm going to have to go without the predictability of our pattern. And that's what's hard. Even though you think like, oh, the pattern's bad. It's like, no, the pattern was good because it was predictable. Predictable patterns are more comfortable than new beginnings. Think about that. So you have someone in a job. They hate the job, but the money's good. But they also know how to do the job. They have all the answers. There's no better feeling than you work at a job or you're in a field. Someone asks you 10 questions and you have 10 answers like that. And you're like, I know that that's true. That's a great feeling. Now, from the outside, you might be going, oh, man, I'd like a job with better money. Oh, I'd like a job. But then you go, I got to start over again. I got to do the interview process. Oh, I don't even know where my next job is. In order to get that next job, you have to make space for it, or you got to start searching. In relationships, it's the same thing. The interview process is the dating process. In relationship, the idea that I'm in this relationship that I'm not really happy in, but I'm getting some things that I value. So I'll just stay in it because I don't want to go out without those things for a month. My point is, here's the idea. Here's the rub. You can take her back. Like I said, this isn't that toxic. You seem to be overcoming it. You've been together 3 years. If you're going to meet someone that's a better match, that's not from another planet, you got to break up. What I would say is you got to go full no contact, no social media, no text. And a woman like this, she probably will keep a key or keep an overnight bag at your house or something like that. And so that'll be yours and hers way of, hey, your bag's still here. Did you want to come over? Hey, I need to grab those keys. If that happens, have her drop the keys off. Have her drop the bag off. And at least give yourself 30 days. Give yourself 30 days to assess how much you miss her, because you're probably not going to fix this problem. Because individuals that break up 5 times, they just keep doing it. It's something they learned. And usually they learned it as a kid. A lot of spoiled kids are like this, right? Let me cry for what I want and then I'll get it. Let me create the most extreme thing, like breaking up, that I know the other person will be triggered out and then I'll get my way. Right? You're never going to change that pattern. Even if you got back with her in a month or 2 months, the pattern is going to, it's just too built in if it's happened that many times. Like I said, you might be able to go with it and go, you know what, I'm okay with it. And you might even be better at, when you guys get in fights, just anticipating what's next and, you know, dealing with it. But if you're going to get out of this, eliminate the possibility. You're 5 days into the breakup, you miss her, you realize that, right? Eliminate the possibility of her coming over the house, dressed well, and you guys hooking up again. That's a sacrifice to play a long game, to bet on yourself meeting someone better. You with me? As far as all these issues, I would book a session with myself to air out the last 3 years. And just like yesterday, I had a session that was supposed to be 1 hour, we went 3 hours. And he's just airing out every situation. I'm listening, I'm asking questions, we're going through it. That's therapeutic. And then you get more of a clarity inside you that you're making the right choice, because all these reasons that you've been bottling up come out. Does that make sense? All right. I've got one more. That was my pattern. Break up to find a reason to be loving. Got to break that pattern. Well, being aware of the pattern first and foremost helps. Hey, Coach Mac, I love the live streams. Keep it going. Thank you. I want to ask you a direct question. Direct questions are good. I'm in a relationship right now where I feel like something is off, and it's not anything on the surface. It's more like a gut feeling, and it's not one that I think she's cheating. All right. Way to say that, because a lot of people are like, oh, gut feeling, she must be seeing someone. It's more like this feeling that I'm with someone that does a lot for me, cares about me, loves me, but I'm not happy with her internally. I feel like we will break up at some point. Maybe I'm just waiting for the right moment. So a couple things come to mind here. It's possible that this is just bad timing for you, and internally you have some issues that have nothing to do with her that disenable you to love her the way you want to love her. That's one possibility. So sometimes when someone has relationship issues like this, where they're like, oh, she loves me, oh, she's great, or he's great, they do all these things, but something's not right. It could be the connection thing where you guys are from different planets, different perspectives. It could be that, or it could be some kind of insecurity that you think they're better than you. The most common one for a lot of people nowadays, especially for men, is when the woman makes more money. This kind of spark something. So it could be a variety of things. I could help you in a live coaching session unpack that so you can kind of bring it to the surface. Well, what is it internally that's really making me feel this way beyond her being so great? It could be you. Like I said, I feel like we will break up at some point. Maybe I'm just waiting for the right moment. I'm just worried because we share a car and make the payment, but it's in her name. Do you think that's what's holding me back? I think that's your surface-based reason, and that's common for a lot of people. I hear this all the time. A lease, or we have a lease together. we own a house together, we own a business together, and this just keeps people together longer. And ironically, it doesn't help because people are like, oh, I'm just going to, they create a deadline. So they create this deadline when the lease is up, when the car payment's up, then I'll break up. But really, if you break up, it's still going to be hard with that deadline. Because if you really put your mind to it, you could figure out the car. You could say, hey, look, if I pay the payment, can I have the car for 3 months? If they say no, it's my car, it's in my name, and they're difficult about it, go, hey, look, all right, well then are you going to be able to take over the payment? Because like that's something that can be hashed out. Same with a lease, the lease thing. How much are you going to lose on the deposit if you guys, broke the lease 1 month early? All right, are you willing to eat that in the name of having freedom and a new life? Sometimes that's just what you need to do. Is like, all right, yeah, the deposit's $2,000, and you're like, all right, you can have the full deposit if you want to stay in the apartment and get a roommate, or can you just give me half back? When you can negotiate that. So if those are your reasons for staying in a relationship, just dig deeper on the solutions to not waiting and dealing with the problem now. Especially when it's money. Money's negotiable because it's numbers. She also appears to all my family to be a great girlfriend, but sometimes she's upset. She goes for the kneecaps, as you say. She takes cheap shots at my character and talks down to me. That's one of those things. I was just talking to a client this week that had a horrible case of that with a girlfriend. And the problem with that is if you accept it, if you accept the cheap shots and the verbal abuse, you start to believe that stuff. That's how your mind works. You start to entertain it. Someone says, hey, you kind of smell today. And then they go, oh, I'm just joking. It's like in the back of your head, you're like, is every joke half true? Are you serious? Right? It's like if your partner keeps making these comments to you, they're chipping away at your confidence and your self-respect. Now, if they make a comment and you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, I am. They're like, oh, you're lazy. And you're like, oh yeah, I can be a little bit lazy. Like you can see where they're coming from. All right, fine. If they're making like just mean-spirited, harsh comments to take shots at you, hit the ground running and get the hell out of there. At some point, you can't do that because what they're going to do is if you accept that, you start to believe it. You start to get down on yourself. You start to crunch. You start to think, maybe I am so ugly. They always told me this. It's like you gotta get out of that. Because if you aren't the authority in the relationship, if you aren't leading the relationship and they are in some way and they're saying those things to you, they're programming you. And guess what? They're controlling you. Why would they stay with you and do that? So they can control the situation, do whatever they want. It's not a good situation to be in. So if they repeatedly do that, and like I said, it's different to say something and there's cheap shots where you're like, wow, that was low, right? I've dealt with this before as a kid with my dad, so I'm used to it and I kind of just take it. I'm wondering, how do I stand up better for myself? And could this be a reason I'm feeling like I got to get out of this relationship? Absolutely, it's a reason. And absolutely, there's a reason you handle it, because when you were a kid, and this is great you bring this up, when you were a kid, you couldn't leave home. You couldn't tell your dad, hey, I'm out of here. I got a backpack. There's stories like that of people leaving the house at 14, 15 for extreme situations. It's not very common, but guess what? When you're 7, 8, 9, you can't really leave the house, man. So that verbal abuse, that dad talking down to you, you have no control. You might be able to tell a counselor at school or something like that, but really? You're an adult now. You can make some moves. You can eat the car payment. You can figure it out. And that's when you realize that, like your whole world opens up and you're like, oh shit. Yeah, this is kind of like what dad did, but I have a choice here. I can get up off the mat. And the reason you are accepting it, because it's familiar to you. You're used to getting talked down to. You know what it's like. So your mind's like, I've been through this before. I can accept it. Right? Not now. The reason you wrote this story, you're like, wait a minute. The fact that you're aware that your dad did that and this is kind of mirroring that situation. All right, that's your first step. Now you say to yourself, never again. Because people that do that, they're doing it. They're daring you to step up. They're daring you. It's like, have you ever seen a bully in the schoolyard that's like smacking some kid around, right? And they're just hitting him. They're just hitting him. They're just hitting him. And the kid's just like taking it because he's smaller. He's this. And then all of a sudden that kid fucking erupts and he's just like, what the fuck? Have you ever seen this when you were a kid in elementary school or middle school? There's some kid that might be a little bit more feeble, that might not be as cool. And all of a sudden he's like, what the fuck? And he flashes on that bully. Sometimes the bully kicks his ass, but sometimes the bully's like, oh shit, and walks away because he doesn't want any of that. Right? I'm not telling you to be like that with your partner, but I am saying when you do decide to stand up for yourself, they won't fuck with you as much. I've dealt with this before as a kid with my dad. Okay, I've gone to therapy and I'm at peace with my dad now, but sometimes I feel like she's him. Am I creating this or overreacting to this? I definitely don't think you're overreacting to it. I think the word isn't creating. I think you're accepting it. Okay. And you're accepting it because you've been through it before. And you're accepting it because you're used to it. And you're not completely at peace with your dad right now because it's been bubbled back up. You probably just pushed it down. You were happy with where it was at. And now you might just need to air this out with myself or someone else out there and pick it apart. But this idea that, and this comes up a lot, man. Oh, we're just going to stay together till the car payment, till the lease, till this deadline comes up, and then we'll figure it out. That's all right. But usually when you get to that deadline, that lease or that car payment or whatever it has to be, you come up with another reason because you're just scared to break up. And that's okay. But if you really dissected that problem that's holding you up, that little gatekeeper that's like, oh, well, if I didn't have this problem, then we could just break up. If you dissected it, your brain can come up with 100 different possibilities, ideas. And that's where I come in sometimes in coaching. It's like, all right, well, what about this idea? I've had people go, oh, that's a good idea. That's a great answer. It's because my mind's not clouded by your feelings. My mind's sitting there going, all right, how do we produce this? How do we look at this? Now, when my emotions are involved and it's personal, it's harder for me to think too. Right? But that one, oh man, that comes up a lot. Well, just when this happens, things will be good. Keep saying that. All right. Anyone that's on deck, we got 7 on deck. Brand new Skinner, how you doing? May, how are you? Roller Girl, Rye Flint, always a pleasure. We were talking earlier about patterns. Can I fix my ex? Has anyone ever felt like they've done something to fix an ex? Or you witnessed someone fix someone? Because to me, people, you can sit there and point out the obvious or things people need to fix. They only come to the conclusion. And this is just, I told this to a group of people that I was in a hypnotherapy training with. I was like, people always need consequences. And this lady was like, no, I don't think they always need consequences. I mean, does anyone have any pushback to that? If you have issues, you have problems, you have patterns, and you probably have parents, family, or colleagues, they have these bad habits or patterns of things they do, and you notice them. Like, damn, they always do that. They're completely unaware of the pattern. You point out the pattern, and then they're like, I don't really think so. And they keep doing it. Now, if the pattern has consequences, they're like, oh, I got to stop doing this. A pattern that I came across with a friend a while back. This friend I've been friends with for years. He always checks the bill, at a restaurant or a cafe. And he always thinks he's being overcharged. Not always, but a lot. I mean, and then he'll make a comment like, whatever. Instead of like, hey, did you get the bill? Like asking the question, he'll go, oh yeah. And he does it all the time. And a lot of times I don't think he's accurate. something happened to him in his past where he got ripped off on a bill or someone in his family did, and he just goes over it again and again and again. Doesn't help him in any way. And then it eliminates restaurants to go to, and it embarrasses me sometimes because he's rude to the staff, right? That's a pattern I could tell him. But it's what's the consequence? You know, like what is he going to lose by figuring that out? I'm actually dealing with this somewhat right now. Someone in a pattern? Tell me about it, bud. If anyone's got any questions right now about their relationships, situationships, and by the way, if you want to talk about some kind of work issue or family or friend situationship, throw it in the chat. I will put a invite. If someone wants to come on, I'm actually dealing. Okay. But I don't know. You think you'd be more motivated by rewards. It's like, think about this. You go out and get a good job. You think you're motivated by the money, right? And maybe not, because I've had jobs before where it's not the money. It's, the happiness of doing the job or whatnot. Now, but you also are getting a job because the consequences of not having a job are what? I won't eat. I don't have a place to stay. I don't have any self-respect. I don't feel good about myself. I don't know. There's consequences that are driving you to do that too. And that's what happens in these relationships where, especially men, you're facing a breakup, so you overcompensate and create more rewards thinking that that's going to win the day. Like there was a guy a couple months ago that's really wealthy. He's buying her all these gifts, taking her to expensive concerts, doing all these things he never did in the 2.5 years they were together. And it's like, well, is that who you were when you were first together? Like when you're in no contact or you stop talking or you decide not to play the game of makeup to breakup, you're actually creating some kind of consequence that they got to deal with. It's like, all right, well, they're not going to play this game, but what do I do now? Instead, showering them with surprises and rewards. Now, for some people, it works. I've had a client this last month that said what they've been cheated on, I don't know, 3 or 4 times over a 30-year marriage, and that they eventually were okay with it if there was a trip to Paris or there was a huge sorry. They could deal with it. Now, what they're going to want to break up with that person now is something completely different. And some people are like, oh, wow, that's not good. That's how they've created their own pattern in those situations. I think that someone taking you on an expensive trip or doing something really nice for you is actually maybe a consequence for them for the expense. But it's counterintuitive sometimes. All right, Josh, who, if you're still on deck, I could talk to you for a little bit on the live stream. Like I said, if anyone's got any direct questions about their situations, otherwise we could wrap this up. It's been an hour. Anyone that's on deck right now, go to writemac.com if you want to send in your story and you want me to unpack it in a live stream like this. I do not mention your name. And if you want to do a live coaching session, those are fully refundable if you don't find them useful or helpful. It's kind of an interesting thing to think about. Are you driven more by consequences or rewards? Like if someone tells you they have only been friends with another person and you found out they did what you feel Can you elaborate, Skinner? I'm a little confused. If someone tells you they have only been friends, when you say someone you're interested in or someone you're with? It's okay. Brand new Skinner, if you want to come on to the live stream with audio only, not your picture, that's available. I don't know if you're at work. I think you work nights sometimes. You can do that with that link. One thing that's really hard about going back to the makeup to breakup thing is every time someone breaks up, they take 2 steps back on the relationship. So let's just say that your love and your trust was at an 8 or a 9 or a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. When you break up and then make up again, even though you might have got intimate, lovey-dovey, hooked up, whatever that story said before, you still aren't at the same trust you were. You know what I mean? Like, even when people get back together, not everyone, when they get back together, rebuilds that trust right away. So it's like one of those things. It's still, the relationship's still not where it used to be, and it's still not as strong. It's like the rope gets burned. So when you do 5 times in a year, you're just consistently taking 2 steps back, 2 steps back. And the job analogy would be a good one. So it's like, if you were at a job and you're looking for a promotion or to move up to management or whatever position is going to move you up, make partner at a law firm, whatever, and you keep getting written up or something bad keeps happening to bring you down status, and you're like, oh, I just pushed it back another year. I just pushed it back. What are you doing in a relationship every time you make up to break up? You're just pushing back cemented trust. You're just pushing back what we have to rebuild in the future. Let's say you're dating someone, they tell you that their history with someone was platonic, but you find out that this isn't entirely true. How would you feel? Me personally, all right. So one thing that would count is it a person they work with and is still in their sphere of influence? So is this someone they presented to me as like a friend at work or a friend that they hang out with when we dated? Or is this someone that we ran into at a mall and I could tell they might have had a history by the way they looked at each other, but they don't hang out now. And, it seems over, but they lied that they didn't hook up. That I could probably deal with better than if it's someone that they currently are still with. All right, you can. It's really easy. And like I said, for this live stream software, you can click the link. You don't have to show your camera, and you're in a waiting room. So you won't just come automatically on. So if your picture shows and you're not comfortable with that and you're trying to get your camera off, I'll wait. Because the funny thing about my live streams, people come on and they're not as worried because it's, I get 100 to 200 views. So that's not as big a group, but whatever. If you're audio only, don't worry about it. Let me take a minute. There it goes. So that's what it'll look like, Skinner, when you come on. Give me one moment here. I'm just going to take a quick 2-minute break or 1-minute break. Skinner, if you come on, you'll be in the waiting room off that link. That link, I'll just do it one more time for you fresh. But this will be a good one to talk about. All right. Isn't it interesting, this whole, sometimes though, like if someone's not with that person or still associating with them, I don't know if it really matters, but it does hurt more when you find out later. I've had that one time actually in a relationship where it was my girlfriend at the time. And um, I remember this guy that I knew from around town, the town I live in. And I've run into him a few times, and he's a pretty heavy drinker actually. And I was at this bar restaurant and he was drinking, and I hadn't been drinking too much or anything. I think I was just having a beer, and I was there with a buddy, and he was drunk. This guy was drunk, and he was like, "Oh, hey, what's up, man?" And I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'd met him before. I know him, wasn't friends with him, and he was a nice guy, but like in this particular moment, he was obnoxiously drunk. Nothing bad to me. And then he drops out of nowhere, "Hey, how's so-and-so?" My girlfriend's name at the time. And I'm like, that was weird. "How's she been? How is she?" And I had never introduced him to her directly. So like to me, I was like, that was weird. So I went home that night, and me and my girlfriend at the time had been together a couple of years. I was like, do you know this guy? It was really weird, the way he was asking about you. And I don't remember you mentioning him before. And she's like, no, I don't know him that well. I've met him before through such and such, but no. And I'm like, it was weird, like how excited he was to ask about you. So is there anything? And she's like, no. And she just dropped it, didn't want to talk, like, I was like, all right. And for me at the time, we had a pretty good relationship, actually really good relationship. And I had no worries about cheating. We spent a lot of time together. So there was no reason to, like, oh, you're seeing each other right now. So we had been together for a couple more years. And out of nowhere, we were having some issues years later. And she just was like, you remember that guy, so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, he used to be my boyfriend. And I was like, what? And at first I was like, kind of grossed out a little bit, kind of like, because you're like, that guy, whatever. But it wasn't in any way that they were seeing each other while we were together, as far as I know. Someone just asked me this recently. Have you ever been cheated on? As far as I know, no. Now that I do what I do, I know that it's done way more than you think. But for a moment, it bothered me. But then I was able to let that go, because it wasn't like he was texting her or they were talking or it was ongoing. It was whatever happened between them was before us. And when she told me the truth about that, it surprised me. It came out of nowhere. But at the same time, I was upset for a little bit, but then I was like, all right, whatever. Partially probably why I wasn't as upset, because we were at a different point in our relationship where I knew we were probably going to break up within that next year, looking back. But that's how that situation where you have these history with, what your girlfriend or boyfriend or partner's done in the past. The problem with that now with Instagram and those things, people just dig. They go through your history, right? They go through, oh, so-and-so liked your post. Oh, so it's just, there's an epidemic of that. And I don't know, like liking posts is just seriously overrated. And if your partner or you are putting a lot of stock into that, it's a problem. It's a really big problem, because if you guys are both going to be active on that social media platform, whether it's Snapchat or these things, and that's like the only answer is to stop being on there, and then the other person feels like they're forced. What's up, Roller Girl? You said, hey, did you have a question? Starting to get worried it's not you with these weird responses. Hey, hi. Oh, my laptop isn't being cooperative? Oh, shit. You might be able to use your phone, bud. If you want to, I'll be on for a little bit. You might, because I know one of the things that frustrates people, you can email me the story and then I can read it. If it's not even that long, because I know the thing about these live streams, they only allow you so many comments. If you never found out that your partner's friend was platonic, would you care then? I think that's what's hard, is when you just feel like, why'd you lie to me? Why'd you lie to me? It's funny because years back, that same girlfriend, when I first started dating her, I remember we ran into this girl. I don't know, like in a downtown area. And she was like, Mac, what's up? Da-da-da-da. She was all excited to see me. She's talking to me. She gave me a hug. I said, what's up? And at this time, that girlfriend wasn't official, but we had been dating for a while. And she's like, have you hooked up before? Have you guys slept together? And I went, yep. Long time ago. And she's like, okay. It's like, you know what I mean? Yeah, she said hello. Yeah, she was excited to see me. We're not together anymore. I'm not going to answer a bunch of, and she kind of respected me for that. She was like, okay. She was surprised too. I said, yes, we had. We've done it before. Now, the good thing is I wasn't asked for all these details about it. Like, some people were like, oh, well, what happened? It's like, I don't know. It's a long time ago. But it kind of feels good when you're at a place in your life when you're like, yeah. I believe, though, to be fair, women know that men are a little more triggered by that. And so they tend to maybe not always tell the truth about it. And for men, just make sure you can handle the truth. Right? Like, some women's numbers or who they've been with. And what does it really mean if they're not with that person anymore? Is it just an ego thing for you? You like that one, Rye? I just went, yeah, we did. Where I've been with women before, where it's like you can kind of tell, but you don't know. The thing is, when you can sense that there's been some kind of chemistry between your girlfriend, your ex, your wife, or something, and someone else, it doesn't mean they did anything. Could be they just flirted at work, or they, you know what I mean? Or it could be that they hooked up, I don't know, 5 years ago. Does it really mean anything then? When it gets awkward is if you have the same circle of friends and that person's at group dinners, family gatherings. That's awkward. That's uncomfortable. Because if the other person knows you guys used to hook up before, there's just something ingrained in us as humans that seeing the person is really uncomfortable. Some people can get over that with time, but like that person, that was my reaction in that story I told you. Like, really, that guy? So anyone else with any questions before I go? Oh, there we go. Wow, B joins on the add-on. All right, man. Let's see here. Wow, B joins on the I gotta put my headphones on. You hear?
Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh wow.
You're live. All right.
This is Skinner.
How you doing, bud?
Oh no. So it's an interesting. Well, I think it's an interesting situation.
Sure, I'm listening.
Okay, well, I'm gonna give you a quick rundown of the situation.
Hmm.
So, I was dating a chick at work. My voice, it's so weird hearing my own voice.
Well, just a moment. Like, do you have headphones, or do you have headphones you can put in?
Let me see.
I got my
Oh, wait,
echo.
are you hearing echo?
Yeah, I hear an echo. I can deal with it, but if you have headphones, it'll make it easy, or ear pods or whatever.
So, I don't mute that. I'll mute it.
Oh, is it, okay. So you just mute it. All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you hear me? Is there echo still?
Yeah. Yeah. 10 times better, bud. Thank you. Go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. So, I was dating a girl at work. It was pretty good, to be honest. She treated me nice. She was really like, it was kind of like it was. I would say it was very mature the way she treated me. It was kind of I'll say it was probably the best a girl has treated me in terms of like uh action.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that to say to lead into the fact that I would say the issue with that was my own issues where I have a I would say I have a bad time where if something bothers me about someone, I probably let it build a little too much.
Mm. Okay.
I let it build a lot, and so I don't say anything because what this situation. One of the things it taught me was usually whenever, like I said, I feel a way about something, I sit with it, and I think I act a certain way with the person who made me feel that way, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a good communicator, but for them, I do think. Uh, I'm saying all that to say I think I'll probably, for the most part, I'll probably end up getting broken up with because I'll let a lot of stuff slide that I
Mm-hmm.
probably shouldn't and I probably should speak about. But I say all that to say,
Mm-hmm.
um, so she's leaving the job and the situation broke down because I would say I didn't reciprocate the way I should have.
Okay.
So the situation broke down, but the main reason I'm on here is because I ended up at she left the job, you know, and we the situation probably could have kept going, and it probably was going to keep
Okay.
going, but okay, so there's a guy. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. When we first started talking, there was another coworker. He was very territorial about her, like to the point where he saw us talking one day, and as we're talking, he comes up and he threatens me for talking to her.
Jokingly or serious?
No, he was dead serious. Like
Did they
he
have a
was dead
history?
serious.
Was he
And
dating her?
I'm gonna get up to all that
Okay.
because
Okay.
of
I'm
that.
listening.
So
Go ahead.
because of that happening, I asked her because okay, so everybody's cool. You know, I have a manager. He let me live with them when I was in between like moving into my current apartment. But I'm saying
Okay.
that to say he was having a little get together, and so she was gonna be there. So she messaged me after he threatened me, trying to make sure we were cool because it was the beginning. So she didn't want that to kind of like hamper the situation.
That makes sense.
So we talked when we were there, and that was one of the one things I specifically asked. You know, I was like, hey, do you guys have a history? Because I'm not the type of person who's gonna judge somebody for their history with somebody, but because he was so territorial, I had to, you got to look after myself. So I
Well,
had
you're
to be
also don't
very,
want it's work, bro. You don't want
yeah,
drama at work. It's
exactly.
different. You work there, so
And
you're
you know,
like
I'm
it's one thing if it's not work. That's another decision to make. But when it's work, it's like I got to see this dude every day. I don't want
exactly,
to. I don't want to being bitter and creating
and
problems for me at work.
I'm I'm kind of sort of in a place where I'm next in line for a promotion, so I didn't want anything to kind of affect that. So
Sure, it's a fair
she tells
question.
me,
Then.
she told me, nothing has ever happened with them. He liked her, but that was it.
Mm.
Fast forward, like I said, the situation was breaking down, and we were, uh, it was kind of like I would say we were kind of like iffy, where there was still that chemistry and stuff, but I can't really say we were dating. I could,
Seeing each other.
Yeah,
hooking up.
but I could tell it was like maybe she wasn't as attractive because she felt I hurt her for the way I showed up, which I will admit, I could have definitely been more invested in the situation. But that fast forward to recently,
Mhm.
she had a little get together with a bunch of people. I wasn't invited, which was okay because I wasn't going to go anyway, just because, I never felt comfortable hanging out outside of work with her if the guy was going to be there. Because what do I look like holding back to not like ruffle his feathers? That's just, I feel like we were all grown. That's not how I want to.
Makes sense. Yeah. Like I said, the work situation makes a difference.
Yeah,
It's like that's your and you've been working at that job, you like that job.
yeah.
Don't fuck with.
I've been there since it opened.
Mm.
Yeah. So recently, I had a conversation. Now, very, very, very like years ago, she dated a direct coworker of
Hmm.
mine. I got curious.
Lost you for a minute.
I got curious, and I asked it in a way was like, "Hey, are they dating?" Like, because not too many people knew what our situation was. A few people knew, but you know, I didn't want to blow up the spot.
Sure.
So a few people knew. He didn't know that we dated, but he knew that we were getting close. So I asked him. I was like, "Hey, do they have a history?" And he told me, he's like, he hesitated for a second, and he's like, "Hey, she's gone now, so I'll tell you, they did have a history." And he said that they were like on and off. Basically, they tried to date, but she has a son. So the way he described it to me was, damn, I'm thinking about it like, I don't think she'll see this, but that it just hit me like, I hope she doesn't. But she has a son, so he described it to me that she didn't like the way he treated her son. So I was like, I won't lie, I was a little upset about it because one of the things about the dynamic was I didn't want to. I could talk to her when he was there, but when he was there, if he saw us talking, he'd like start threatening her and all this other stuff later. Like, hey, like every time I see you guys talking, like every time he sees you, he's talking to you and stuff. Which wasn't. He was just that kind of guy though. He said like he sees anybody talking to her, he's like right there. He's watching like a hawk. So one of the reasons that upset me finally. Well,
Hmm.
let me back up a little bit. So I
I'm listening.
like the way my coworker described the situation. I believed it. Like he was like, I believe that yes, because I always had like in the back of my mind, I always did feel they had a history, but um, you hear different stories because it was one of those situations where they were always together in outside situations. So you're like, something has to be going
Well,
on.
your intuition and that could, like sometimes people, oh, my intuition, my intuition. Sometimes your intuition's wishful thinking. Sometimes your
Yeah,
intuition's you want to believe. If you're in the presence of those people regularly at work, then your intuition's stronger because subconsciously you're collecting information, right? You're collecting shit.
yeah,
So you were just like, I think this. It's like you saw stuff, you saw
yeah,
interactions that gave you that intuition, which makes sense. Like I think
yeah.
you, you weren't off because you're just observing the work scene like anyone else would, and you notice things. And the funny thing is about people at work, they don't see what you see because you see them from the exterior, right? So like you'll
Yeah,
notice someone's acting out or they're like in a corner with someone else or something like that, or they're talking, and you pick up that stuff, especially if you're observant. And like I said, when you got intuitive thoughts about it, your intuition's going to be stronger because of that. It's not just from the sky. So
yeah.
go ahead. I'm
Because
sorry.
they definitely he would definitely no, it's fine. I got on here because your input. I wanted to make sure like because I haven't gotten to my reaction to it, but
Okay.
um
I'm
because
listening.
this is like what like when I look back because he would obviously always be around her like he would go up he would go look for her and hang out with her and stuff, but um because I just look back at all the stuff that happened and it makes me look at it from a different perspective, finding out that they might, they have this history. So my reaction was honestly, the situation I felt like deteriorated. So I sent her a text message and then I blocked her. Didn't even give her a chance to respond. And I think that's the part. Like now, I'm like, did I overreact in that sense?
What'd you want?
Huh?
Did you want
Oh
to
well,
hurt her? Did you want to make her feel like I just know about this? Because it sounds like whatever you guys had, whatever you two had or had going, it wasn't something like you're not heartbroken. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you're so upset. It's like you were interested in her, and you can correct me on this. Like you're interested in
yeah,
her, you guys had something going, you maybe hooked up a few times, but it wasn't like you're beside yourself like this dude. Like this
yeah.
guy's
It was.
following around like a lost puppy. So you know what I mean? And it's like he's being she and by the way, she might like that. Some women like the guy that, validates them at work, even though they're not going to
I
do they're
definitely
not,
got that impression.
you know what I mean? A lot of women do, not all, but like, oh, you want to follow me around and give me attention? Sure.
Yeah,
No problem. Like,
the impression I always got was that if I'm being honest, even though I was feeling a certain way about that, I did feel like she didn't. They probably had a past, but she didn't want it. She definitely didn't want that to like ruin what we could get going. And I guess I'm at a point where I was trying to figure out if that was selfish or. But when you asked how did I want her to feel about it, it's interesting because I remember specifically being over here like, man, I feel like I should be more heartbroken about this because I do like her. Like she was really good to me. It was just more like I felt like the Corey Wayne, like, oh, she's not really giving me like all the attention I want and stuff now. But it was like, because like I said, the situation deteriorated enough where I think I'm more offended that I really couldn't speak my mind about it. But at the
well,
same time,
all right,
she had
let me
plausible deniability because
all right, let me interject. So, how did it deteriorate? Would be my question.
I would say like
You
I'll give
pulled
you an
away, or
idea of
she
the
pulled
kind of
away?
she pulled away because she was like, man, like she was doing okay. How can I say it? She was giving me like gifts and stuff, just doing little things that I think any guy would be like, man, like this girl is really doing a lot of nice stuff for me. But
She likes you.
I'm like, one thing I would say about myself is I'm still trying to figure out how to like love people correctly
Okay, well that's fuck,
because
man. That's a good
yeah,
thing to know right now.
one of the that you kind of look at the reasons, the whys of who you are. Like one of the things about me was, and I love my mom, but I feel like, and then maybe this is just my way of coping, but I
Hmm.
feel like because like one of the traits I feel like I get from my mom is like that aloofness, that like I still find it awkward to say things like babe to somebody, but my mom was
Hmm.
like really distant. Like she wasn't the type where you come home and it's like, how's your day? I love you, blah blah blah. So I felt like that reflected on me where it's hard for me to be affectionate like that. But I always
Mm.
end up dealing with women who like need affection, which I think everybody needs affection. Even I crave affection. I just never knew how to do it myself.
Well, there's your reason. I can relate to that. Like, I have a pretty good mom, but like my mom's not affectionate at all. She's not. She grew up that way because she had an abusive father, not sexually abusive, but abusive to her mom and strict.
Right.
And my mom's not bad, but she wasn't affectionate, and we didn't have like pet names or like say I love you before bed and kiss each other.
Yeah.
Like or like sit on the couch and like hold. So
Oh,
I've dealt with
oh
that in
man,
my
yeah.
life with, and I'm not saying like I'm not. I think you're saying the same thing. It's not a knock on my mom. Your mom learned that somewhere too, and that's okay. That's how she dealt with her whatever her childhood was. And then when you're around women, you just subconsciously are like, oh, affection's too much because you
Man, when
might
I
have
tell you
witnessed.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
It's
Oh
all right.
no, I was just gonna say, like, when I tell you I literally used to be afraid. I used to be afraid of interacting with like attractive women. Men, women, period, but definitely attractive women.
Yeah, that's something from your that's something that happened when you were young or a couple of events. Same thing happened to me when I was younger. I was always good with in my 20s like attracting women or like being completely comfortable. I'm always been friendly, outgoing, like can talk to anyone like that. But being in affectionate moments, and some people were like, "Oh, you're just probably scared of rejection." Not really.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It was more just a block. It was just a block. Like, and then when I did some
Yeah.
work on myself, I actually talked about this. I'll send you the interview, this Expanded Minds podcast, Ezekiel, that was on. I actually went into depth about this particular thing, but when I was a kid, something happened at a babysitter with another kid that was like, I got in trouble by the babysitter for doing something that she deemed dirty. I won't even go into it right now, but the kid was older. The kid was older, and I was like 4 or 5, man. We were literally in a closet, like, and I was, and that came up. I'm not saying that's what happened to you. And then there was a
Right.
few situations when I was young where my dad was like pushy with my mom, I would say, about affection and intimacy.
Yeah.
And I always never wanted to be like that. So I always thought like, I'm not going to be that creepy guy or that pushy guy. And so like a couple of events came up too. So you probably have a couple of events, bud, that if me and you like did a live coaching on video and stuff, we can probably get to the bottom of it. And once you know what the events are, like, it's not like you're going to be all over her, but you're like, oh shit. All right. It's not just me. It's like a couple stories, and I call them gatekeepers, that happened to you when you're young, are keeping you in a position where you're like, because like I said, for me, it wasn't like, oh, I'm scared to make a move. It was just a block. It was just
it's just like tough to actually just make it's tough to actually do it. Like, you want to do it. You tell yourself, hey, I should do that. But then like when the moment comes to actually do it, it's just
it's
like,
funny that you mention it, because I'm being sincere. Like, honestly, and I remember thinking in my 20s, I'm just not good at first moves. Like, I had a couple girlfriends, and I just thought it's just me. And then when I like got into like, I never did full on therapy, but as a coach and helping other people and reading books, I've self done it, and then I've done hypnotherapy and some other things. And the things that came up, I was like, oh shit, that thing at the babysitter, I'd forgot about that. It's not even something that, do you know what I mean? And then the thing,
how do you like, how did that stuff come up? Like, what exercise did you do? Because like when we're us saying this conversation, I'm thinking about the moments where like that just make me cringe because I knew what to do, but I didn't do it. And I look back now, like, what was I doing?
Yeah, it's related to.
But I think we're talking about different things, though.
Okay, what do you think what do you mean different things?
No, I just mean in terms of like you think about the moment as a kid, but I'm thinking about like, oh, that date I went on where I was like literally frozen in place, kind of thing.
Well, I'm saying the reason why you were frozen in place, your mind's a memory bank. So like something, I'm not saying the same experiences I had,
right?
But just the fact that if your mom was a little bit cold when you were younger, or you got like your mom, when you came over to get a hug when you were 5 or something, your mom pushed you away, or like stuff like that, you can surface it. And then that's the reason why you're, have that block up, where it's not just like you're just scared to make a first move. There's some kind of, and it could be like your first relationship. It could be a variety of things, but knowing that first, that it's not like you're just bad at that. It's probably something else. Cause like I thought,
so how did you figure it out?
I have a set of questions that I got from a book, and I'll share them with you in a email. I just did it with a client recently. Like, it's a sequence of like 12 questions. All right, I won't go through them all with you, cause you probably don't want to share the details of these answers, but let me.
I mean, if I could, I don't mind answering. If
sure, because it's like about your childhood and stuff. So,
let me hear the question first.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, I appreciate your. I'll get an email tomorrow. Like, take it down, please.
Nah, I feel like I don't think there's anybody to see this. I feel like
Hold on a sec. I'm not saying for you to be embarrassed. I've had it happen before like that. Hold on a sec. Let me find this.
Yeah, I usually laugh when you say that. I'm like, it's almost like they just wanted to hear your opinion without it actually being on the live stream.
Then book a session, right? So I'm just gonna say the questions first, and then, well, actually, it's good when they're a surprise. All right. So you want to do this?
Let's go.
All right. So the first question is like, why are you here? So what's your problem? That you were unable to make a move with this girl, Like, is that the problem we're going to talk about? What specific
Wait, are
problem?
you you mean in terms of the situation I'm on the live stream for?
It's up to you, but I think that we just, by coincidence, we unearthed something else, because you're like, I've always been this
Okay.
way. I've always been this way.
Oh yeah.
This is the real problem you're having. But by the way, just to wrap up your other stuff about my opinion about your work situation.
Yeah, yeah. Because I was gonna ask, like, yeah. Let's
Let
wrap
me
that
just,
up.
yeah, because I'm listening to you, I heard everything. Number one, if you like your job, it's just better to not hook up with someone from work, because it just creates so much drama. I've done it, and it creates awkward situations. It's even worse if you got some dude that's, guard dogging the girl.
Well, she's
Right?
gone
Like,
now. She's gone now. She got a
I
different
know.
job.
I'm just saying, like, it doesn't mean you're a puss, or you're scared of the guy. It's just drama. It's just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And you like your job. So it's a conflict of interest. Now, the idea that, like, you were above board when you were like checking these get-togethers, or your manager was checking these, I got you. But at the same time, like, if a guy's like that too at work, it's like she's not even your girl yet, and you're already dealing with drama. It's, you know what I mean? It's like, it's one thing if you guys were already together.
Yeah.
That being said, if you really liked her and it was really cool, you can explore it. You know what I mean? Like, you could make it work depending on how big your job is. It depends. It's like back in the days when I worked at Nordstrom when I was like 19 or 20, I remember I had a girlfriend that worked in the mall, and she's like, "Hey, I got a job at Nordstrom's. I'm going to work right upstairs." I'm like, "Fuck, really? You ain't going to fucking ask me?" Like, I was like, she's like, "We can go to lunch." I'm like, "Fuck, man." But my girlfriend was cool. Like, it was a good job for her. She wasn't a bad girlfriend, but I was just like, "Damn, man. Like, you're going to be down on the, you know what I mean?" And it ended up not being so bad, but we broke up a year later, and then it was like, I got to get out of here, because she's going to lunch with other dudes. You know what I mean? It's like,
that kind of stuff is like, oh man.
Yeah, that's the part. Like, when it's good, it's fine. But like, if you guys have
so
friction and you have drama, and they try to get your attention, you're like, dude, at work right now, that's when it becomes a problem.
You say that, because like, I remember the feeling, like, if I ever, like, if she left and then he disappeared or something, I would be like, the intrusive thoughts and stuff. Like, it just, man, because like I said, she was really good. To be honest, I don't even know if I'll hear from her, because because she lives around the job too. So, because my job is pretty far from where I live, but it was just like, because I did feel kind of bad. I'm like, man, I just blocked her straight out, didn't give her a chance to even like deny it or anything. But I just felt like, number one, I felt like it was true that they did have history. But number two, it was like the situation isn't even like that great anymore. So like, is it even that bad? I think I'm just feeling bad that I did it. Like,
it was impulsive, right?
Because I think we were good. And
you heard it from someone else. So, like, from work. So you feel like I wasn't in on it. Everyone else knew. That's not a good feeling,
I wouldn't
too.
even say that, because I think I think most people had an idea, like, because you could just, you've seen somebody where it's like,
that's what I'm saying. When you work with them, you're like, all right, whatever. If you guys haven't hooked up, then someone likes someone.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and some people, like I said, they're just, attention hogs. They just, they love attention. They love validation. There's women out there that can get that kind of attention and just string along a guy at work and just have them go to, or just be friendly with them while they're with someone else. I had girls I used to work with that would like go to lunch with you. They had a boyfriend, and I was cool because I have a girlfriend or something like that, and we're cool. But they're also lining stuff up too. Now that I look back, like, you're an option later on, maybe. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Like, I'm like, man, like, she was like, but for me, it's mostly like I said, I look at stuff from different perspectives. Like, she would tell me like, oh, they don't talk outside of work. She would say stuff like, because like you said, because she told me that they were only ever just friends. When she's coming up to me to tell me all the stuff he's saying when he's like walking past because he saw us talk or something, I'm over here thinking like, oh, she's just saying this to let me know. But it's like, for me, I'm looking at it now like, wait, this whole time you guys have history, so you know why this guy is so insecure about you. That's the way I'm looking at it. But like I said, because I didn't give her a chance to explain, I'm like, okay, maybe she had a reason for all this,
Well, maybe she was uncomfortable. I mean, maybe. Like, we don't know what we don't know. But
Yeah, because
this
she definitely
possibility that
did
she
seem
was trying to
uncomfortable with
keep
the
it
way we
cool at
did
work
it.
and she was uncomfortable with the guy. You know what
That's
I mean?
true.
Like,
Because that's
she
actually
can't
like
create
it could have been the case.
because nowadays, like in the work scene in the States, it's like if you blow the whistle on some dude, he's fired. He's dust.
Um,
You know what I mean? It's like if she's like, "Oh, I'm uncomfortable with this guy," it's like, "Bye bye." Called into the, you know what I mean? It's just they don't. It's not even played with at a job, so she can't just do that right away. So I mean, I would say the ironic thing is if you were gonna be to revisit this or talk again, it's better that she doesn't work with you. You know what I
oh
mean? It's like
man,
plus.
definitely.
It's a
I think I'll
plus.
just be like, man, like, hey, so I don't even know if I'll hear from her because she probably saw I blocked her and didn't even like look to respond. I don't know because she was doing that a lot too. I'm not the type to reach out a lot, but when I would reach out to try to like, because you might, I don't want to say I overcompensated, but I was like, hey, like, I didn't show her the attention that she needed, so let me try it this time. But she was already so like you could tell she still cared, but she was guarded.
Which you
She
are
was
too.
guarded. Yeah, which is so funny is like we can pivot to the question. I'm probably here
All
to
right.
figure out how not to be so guarded and how to like love freely. I
Okay.
think I can. That's what I would go with.
Love a little bit more freely and be less guarded. So that's been a problem for you, or something that you dealt with that you see like as a problem. So how do you
I think
know
I'm
you have
defensive, like defensive. I would say that's a good word for it. Being defensive, like I'm waiting for
defensive
somebody
with?
to hurt me or something.
Okay, waiting for someone to hurt you.
Yeah,
Hold on. I'll take some notes, man. All right. So waiting for someone, you're defensive about it. How long have you had this problem?
man. I was okay. So my first ever love relationship, I think I was 21, and I'm 28 now. So
Okay.
I would say I've been conscious about it for 8 years, well, 7 years.
All right. So
Because my first ever breakup, I would say I kind of realized it, but not enough to actually like change it. But this last
so
situation with this girl, because she
all right.
treated me so good, I definitely was like, okay, I can't risk losing something like that again.
So how long? So you've had this problem since you were 21. Your first breakup. What happened?
We were semi long distance. I would say like a suburb. Like she lived in the suburbs, I lived in the city. It was like
Mm.
I could have took the train, but I was even worse back then. It was like, man, I was not. I would definitely say I didn't try hard enough. So basically, that situation,
Why don't you think you
she ended
tried hard
up
enough?
because
Because of the
like,
distance,
man, if
or
we,
because?
yeah, well, it was like I said, I would come, like I would probably be bothered by something, and I think we were definitely immature. It was definitely more immaturity at that time, where like, oh, I'm gonna not talk to you because I know it makes you anxious because we're hurting each other type stuff. We were
Mhm.
visiting. It was funny because me and her got a chance to talk, and I feel like uh, that situation. So wait, let me say we broke up because she ended up. She worked for the job I met her. I met her at work, but she ended up leaving, and she worked at the company I worked for, but a different store. So she ended up breaking up with me to date a guy who lived closer. Which what, like you say, circumstances are different. Looking back, I wasn't even that mad because of the long distance. I didn't really try hard enough. So it was like that's one of the situations where I look back like it's understandable that she kind of went to that. We But I think the way she went about it was definitely like the issue with that. When we were able to kind of hash that out, like years later, I would say about 3, 4 years later,
Was it
it
one
was
of
just
those
that
things like when you broke up, you felt
yeah,
like it was like incomplete?
oh man, like, yeah, because it was like
And,
I was basically blindsided because I didn't see it coming. I saw it coming, but not consciously. It
and
was
it
like
really
she
hurt you.
definitely pulled back. Yeah, she pulled back, and it was like to give you an idea of like I won't say traumatic. I think it's a little dramatic to say that word, but
Sure.
to give you an idea, uh, she basically sent me a picture of her and the guy, not like doing anything crazy,
Oh, that's
but
dirty.
yeah, exactly.
So that's how you found out
She's
she's not with you?
yeah, because we broke up and we didn't talk for maybe like a month, and then I called her, and it
That's
was like
tough,
she
bro. That's
answered.
not
She answered. Oh, go ahead.
So you broke up and then she sent you the picture. So it was
She sent them to me because I was pestering her on like, I pestered her a little bit in terms of like I was trying to figure because I could tell like I'm like I think as the conversation was going because I would say she was a bit insecure and what this maybe I'm wrong but I feel like if
I'm
you're
with you.
dating somebody who's insecure and then they like I don't want to say they're not insecure anymore but they almost feel they're almost comfortable not getting your attention anymore. I'm like there was definitely somebody else. So I was like, man, just tell me like you don't want to talk anymore or something
Mm,
like that. I forget what it was, but then she just sent me the picture of her and him to basically confirm. But I could
mm.
tell she still. I don't think she gave herself enough time to get over me. I think she
Okay.
definitely still had feelings for me, but it was like, hey, this guy is closer, and you know that whatever reason she gave
That's
herself.
pretty tough though. Anytime you get your ex, no matter what the situation is, sending a picture with another dude, let alone the amount of guys that I know that dig for that information. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah,
they look up Instagram. Like one guy, oh, because she was international. It's like I just checked her WhatsApp and she's with this guy. And I'm like, fuck. Like, how do you know
yeah,
on WhatsApp?
it
Like,
was
I was like,
painful.
on WhatsApp, I'm like, how would you know? And he's like, she made it her picture for like, because you only have one picture for WhatsApp. I was like, man, so
Wow.
her sending that could be very painful. I got you. So where was there a time you didn't have this problem?
Mm. Is there a time I didn't? Um, mo- my dad, with my dad was probably the one person I look back, man, I would have like, man, I remember like all the stuff I felt like I wish I could do with like certain people. There was like no hesitation. Like I would go buy his favorite cookies because he was sick for like the last few years of his life. And man, like I never hesitated with doing anything. Like there was no, and I mean, I don't hesitate. Anybody I'm really comfortable with, I don't really hesitate. But like that's the one person where like that sticks out to me. There was never ever any hesitation. I would go to him and talk about anything.
And he passed away.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He
How long
passed
ago?
away. 2018.
Okay. Fairly recent. All right. So you didn't have that problem with your dad of conveying and showing love. Um,
Yeah.
so what have you done about this problem?
Well, the way I started like building on it and trying to like fix it was I would just it was let me think about that for a second.
No problem. I'm not rushing you.
Mm, mm. I don't know. Sometimes, like for the most part now, I just try to be conscious of a moment that I could do something.
Okay.
But going back to I try to be conscious of a moment that I can help somebody out because I'm the type of person I'm not like if somebody needs help with like money or something like I'm not like oh no I need this, but I will say when it comes to like girls like or people I date, one thing is I do always like I feel like when I'll tell myself I want to do something, but like you said, it's that block, the hesitation where I'm like doing this will probably be a good idea, but also I realize that sometimes in the back of my mind, like I told you, some stuff bothers me and I don't speak up about it. I think about that, like I think in the back of my mind, sometimes I think about that stuff, but it's like subconsciously. I don't know. Maybe I'm just creating something right now.
No, that's
I'm
okay.
not sure, but I do think
When you create these things, like, so when you're saying you hold back from just doing nice things sometimes, or just like we were talking about earlier about being when you're dating a woman, like being more intimate or giving a kiss or a hug or doing something nice for them, that something in the back of your mind's like, don't do this because she might be
yeah,
playing. Don't do this
yeah. You know
because
what? That's a
she doesn't
great way.
really.
That's a great way to put it. It's like
So is there,
maybe like
all right,
yeah,
so what I was going to say is that sometimes people have a theme, and I'm not saying what your theme is. Like, she's playing me. She doesn't really like me that much. I'm not good enough. Like, I don't make enough money. That's a common one for dudes these days. You know, like,
yeah.
um, is there one that's coming up a lot for you, or is it different with different people?
Um, uh, hold on. Okay, so I'm just gonna say a statement, and I don't know. I want to see
Sure.
what it says to you. So basically, with this current situation, one thing that was on my mind, right? I was telling myself like
Mhm.
I have all these. I would probably say I'm jaded, and then I was saying to myself like, but you, interesting enough, I fought against this idea, but I was like, hey, I think I'm jaded, and then I'm like, this situation is reinforcing that, but I've actively fought against thinking that.
What are you jaded about? Like, what do you mean when you say jaded? What do you mean by that?
I feel like I just feel like, man, I'm the type of person I don't put anything past anybody, and I look at people through this lens like you're a cool person. I think you're nice, and for the most part, you're like socially you're good to me, but I don't put it past you to do something that screw me over.
This is where you grew up in a major city, right?
Yeah, Chicago, Bulls,
Yeah,
go Bulls.
yeah, Bulls, yeah. But I'm saying like city living, and I didn't live in like San Francisco, but I lived in San Francisco for a little while. It's like different when you live in a city sometimes too, because you're more there's more people, you're more on edge a little bit, so that might come with that too, like being more. Where do you think that comes from, being like that for you?
For me, I mean, definitely my environment, and I've just seen. I think I just know I've known a lot of slimy people. I think that might be what it is. Like I have an uncle, man. Like, man, I would if it wasn't locked down, I would. You ever knew somebody where like they were the type of person who would take something where it's not something that you knew you needed, or you're not even like caring to have it, but you notice it missing.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I had a brother-in-law like
yeah,
that.
like I've got
Like I
family
was like,
members like that.
I remember when I was in high school, I had all those like baseball caps. Like I had the New Air, like 3 or 4 different kinds, because a friend worked at a store, and I remember being like, "Is that my fucking base? Is that my Indians hat? Is that my like, just sporting it? Just wearing it. It's just like what? You didn't even ask me. So like, I've known people like that. He's an ex-convict. Like just like yeah, like we're family now. I guess I can take your hats. So I
Yeah, and I
know what
don't
you
know if
mean.
that's where I get it from.
It could be if that like when we talk about these things, a lot of times people will go like, "Oh, I don't know if it's that." It's like anything that's the first thing that's up is contributes to it. So it's like when we make decisions, when people talk about the subconscious is being backed by all the activities and all the events and all the things that have happened to you, not me. So that's why we're different. So like your Rolodex of events that happened to you, I don't have the same ones. So when we hang out, I might be like, why are you tripping right now? Why are you upset with this person? Why are you acting like this?
Yeah,
They're cool. This is my friend. I didn't go through your filters. So you're going to filter that whole situation completely different. And this is where people get all pissed off with each other because everyone thinks they're running on the same fucking filter.
yeah.
But you have multiple
You
ones
know,
for different situations. So then like what we're doing right now is we're unpacking like maybe one of your filters for this situation. And it doesn't mean you're going to change 100%. You'll just like be aware of it and now maybe redirect some of your like where you were rigid, where you just did things, like a certain way. Now that we talk about it, we'll, and get in depth and like peel back layers. Now you just like are
yeah,
like loosen it up a little bit, like, oh shit. So like that uncle thing
yeah,
might be one part of it for sure.
yeah. Because I was just talking to you. I remember like core memories too, of like being in like younger grades, like kindergarten and stuff, and like I remember specifically like passing out the papers. The teacher would make you pass out papers. And
Yeah,
then the
yeah,
girls would like move their hands away really fast. I think I internalized that kind of stuff.
absolutely. Like,
Like
so an event
especially
like that
especially
is,
considering what I said about like my mom and stuff. I'm like, I took that stuff to heart. Like, oh, girls don't like even like touching my paper.
well, that's what I mean. It sounds like in your head, like, oh, can't be that. No, it contributed. Especially if someone in the class or like a girl that was maybe, I don't know, when you were a kid, like a puppy crush, like a puppy love, or you thought she was cool in class and she made a big deal out of it. It definitely, because it's like those first events, they're just building blocks for all your other decisions. So Yeah, like what you just came up with is exactly what, I don't know why this is coming up, but this is coming up. It's like when I mentioned some of the things that came up in my head about my own situation, I was like, where did this come from? Like, I forgot about it. But it's contributing to that decision, you know what I'm saying? To that block.
Yeah.
So being aware of that, like handing out the papers and the girls not wanting to touch your hand or something, yeah, that could be one thing. And then all right, let me pull up these other questions, and I'll give you these questions in an email so you can do this yourself too. So what happened the first time, and you might take a minute for this, the first time you had this problem?
Mm. Mm. The first time I had this problem. Mm. The first time I had this problem.
Well, it's as
How far back? How far back are we thinking
far
here?
back as you
Because
can
there's a
go.
core.
Whatever
There's
comes
a
to mind
core.
first, don't fight it. If you're embarrassed to share it or
Okay.
you're uncomfortable, you can tell me
Hold on.
later.
I was
Okay.
just thinking about like if I want to, because I'll tell you where for me it's really like it really sticks out.
If it's
So
a kid, then that's the first time.
oh, no, I don't think it was when I was a kid. It was probably how old was I? Uh, if I could think about if I could think about a moment that was younger, I'll definitely say it. But I think for me where it sticks out was not right after high school, but I would say a few months out of high school.
So
I
17,
went to this
18.
program and it was kind of like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, well 17. I would say 19. Let's go 19.
Okay, that's
I
cool.
was in this program. I don't know. Have you ever heard of Job Corps?
Yeah. Is that where you work in schools
Yeah,
for
basically,
this?
it's more like imagine it's a government program. Imagine you go there and it's like school, but it's like also a trade program. So you're kind of
Okay.
it's like it was like you can do a trade, but you also like with a bunch of people. It was like imagine living at school.
Okay.
Imagine living at school and but it was an age range of like I want to say 16 to like 24. But so I was in that program, Job Corps, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell you that was the most depressed I've ever been in my life because
Okay.
I felt like being there was like a step back in life, which it wasn't, but in my mind it was. And I told you I can be pretty aloof and like distant, but this was my peak. I was man, like every day I'm walking around there, slumped shoulders, like it was that bad. And I remember the reason this period sticks out to me so much is because I look back now and I missed out on so many opportunities just in terms of like, and I'm speaking like maybe social here, like
It's
in
okay.
terms of show like you know what showing love and just being present because it was a school atmosphere, so there's a lot of people, some people you like, some people you don't, but I had a lot of people, and I'm gonna like to be quite honest, I was not really a good friend because like it was so bad. To give you an idea of how I was acting, like I could be really close with somebody. Like imagine talking right now. We're talking and we're having this conversation. In the middle of
Mhm.
this conversation, I was so like out of it and depressed. I would literally just walk away, like in the middle of this conversation. Like you're like you're giving me good vibes. We're talking, and then like we're really good friends too. And then I'm just like, I'm gonna not even take into consideration your feelings, and I'm gonna walk away from you, and I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say, hey, I'll see you later. I'm just like, all right, I'll just walk away. And it was like I was really just like, it was just
What
really
year was this?
bad. This was I want to say I was
2018.
20. I graduated in 2016, I think. Yeah, 20. No, not. I was gonna say, let's go. This was like 2017. I want to say.
So this is around the time your father was sick?
Was he sick? Um, we didn't really.
I'm asking. I don't know.
This
I
was
don't know.
probably, you know what you saying that. This is probably, yeah, yeah. I think he was sick at the time because it was really gradual, like because it was a lung condition. So 1 minute, it was like really gradual. Like I can't, it's
Could it
funny you say that because I can't really remember. It was like almost like a blur. I just remember like at a point like you had to walk around with oxygen.
I understand. So
I
I
think I
mean
probably remember the worst of it.
it's possible that that time was
Oh, go
coinciding
ahead.
with this time, or
Yeah,
the it's
because I got
possible
out
that that.
there and there was a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a lot going on around that time. And I think because that was a time where, and look really quick to pivot for a
Sure.
second. The reason that this time period sticks out to me so much is because my brother ended up going to Job Corps after I left, and he came back with a totally different experience. And I
Mm.
was like, man, like he had a great experience, like because his experience was positive. And I'm not saying it was all bad. It was just like he talked about it so positively. Like it wasn't great, but it was just so different from mine because it's funny. This goes into the situation because there was a girl there. She was probably the you know what my first girlfriend was. I told you about that, but this girl I never dated. She was probably the first time I I didn't express my feelings, and I was like, man, I'm really bad for that one because to give you an idea, so what happened was, we were young, so I would say I'm telling you, I was depressed at this time, but I had a lot of girlfriends. Like one thing I'll say about me is I think I'm pretty charming. So and I'm good conversationalist. I ask
Mm-hmm.
people questions to make them talk. So I had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of friends who were girls, and I was, you would the way Job Corps would work was when you would start in with a group,
Mm-hmm.
and so there were a lot of girls in this group, and a few of them were actually pretty. It's funny I'm saying all this. I, a lot of people were attracted to me. I don't know, like look, at the time I didn't know why, but it's just like school. I mean, you're bound to find somebody who likes you, no matter
Well,
how
if you're
low your self
charming, and
esteem
yeah,
might be. You might
when
think
you ask
nobody
people
likes you.
good
You're bound to
questions,
find somebody.
sure, sure.
Yeah. So I like this girl, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, every Friday we would do like an event. It was like a trip. So we're going. It was the movies, and I told a
Okay.
friend of mine, I'm like, man, I would really like to go with this girl. I was like, yo, I would really like to go with her. I really like her. And so she told her, but so at the time, there's a girls' dorm and the men's dorm, but at the time we were there. It was like summer break was coming, so while everybody else was leaving who'd been there, we had to stay there for the summer to do our courses
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. So it was co-ed at the time. So she basically put herself in her orbit. And looking back, I wasn't I wasn't in tune, but she was putting herself in my orbit so I could like basically like, you know, act on it. Tell her like, hey, I want to go to the movies, but man, I had no game. Like I had no game. I didn't know what to say. I was nervous as hell. So the day of the movie comes, and mind you, her expectation is that we're gonna sit with each other. And when I tell you, I got to the movies, I'm like most people are like, hey, let's sit all the way in the back. I
Sure.
literally go to the very front where you're right in front of the screen. Everybody's sitting in the back, and I'm like right there because in my mind I'm like nobody's gonna sit here. And so I'm sitting up there by myself, and the girl comes and she's like, "Come on, what are you doing? We're gonna sit back here." And I was like, "Oh shit, this is happening." And it was like I was so nervous. I was so nervous because like I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to deal with it. So like we were imagine being
That
next
was
to
actually
somebody
really nice of the
you're
girl to come
technically
down
on a
and
date.
tell you. That was nice of her
Yeah, I was
to
like,
like
man,
make
she's
the
really
effort.
right. Oh, she really did want to sit with me, which is it surprised me. because there was actually a few times we were she put herself in my orbit to because she like looking back she liked me too, but I didn't know, I didn't believe it. So just saying that, I probably had no confidence too. Like I didn't have any confidence, so
You
I
probably
couldn't believe she liked me.
well. Let me say this. Here's the interesting thing. It's funny talking to so many different people over the years. A lot of guys, like, they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't know how to make a first move. I didn't have my first girlfriend until 21. I didn't do this." And then it's like, what did you just see a movie? Like, I always think to people, would you see a Hollywood movie and think that every guy is supposed to get all the girls in high school? Or like there's a lot of people that
Yeah,
don't
that's a
start
good
dating
point.
until they're 21, 22. There's a lot of guys that, because also, like, when you're in high school, your development's different. Like, I
Yeah,
didn't have a growth spurt till I was 18. Like, people look different, at different times. So um, I was just going to say that there's a lot of guys that, like you just said, like, I was pretty charming. I was actually really good with questions. I was, like, I talk to people, but so, like, you're good at that. But then,
yeah,
it's very common, though, for a lot of guys to be extremely uncomfortable when it comes to dating. Because I had the same thing too when I was in high school. It's like, you think, like, well, I don't want to be kind of like too nice because then I look like a chump,
yeah,
or, like, I'm being too nice. I'm going out of my way. So it's common to be uncomfortable in that first date situation. Doesn't mean you're, when you look back at it.
yeah.
So
Yeah, because it's funny. I had a girl in high school. She thought she was dating me, which it's so funny because I put myself in these situations because I remember even in high school I had a girl. Because we were getting close, and she thought we were really dating, but in my mind I didn't really like register like, oh, this girl is serious about like this. Because I was on the flag football team and she was like a cheerleader in quotations, but it was really just support, and she thought she was dating me, but like it was like it just like I told you, like affection from women didn't register for me. So I think
what would the
for the longest time, women liking me did it was a foreign concept for me.
what were the emotions that were present in that one moment at the movie theater? Like, fear, scared, sad?
Um,
What,
I think man, that's a good question. Um, I was definitely very nervous because
nervous? Okay.
when I tell you, I didn't even let any part of my body touch her. It's like she laid her head on my shoulder and stuff, like, but I was like literally stiff, like as a statue. Like
Okay.
I physically had my body posture to like, so we didn't touch. It was like I
All
was
right.
very standoffish, like, and I feel like that wasn't even like the worst thing because after we left the movie theater, not trying to make any moves. Like it was probably really awkward for her because I could tell she was trying to like open me up in ways. Like she was trying to show me like, oh, I'm okay with you, like, touching me. You can put your arm around me because she put her head on my shoulder and stuff. But like, I wasn't gonna let that happen. Like it was just my mind wasn't there.
You weren't going to let
And
it
so
happen. That's an
I felt
interesting
like,
way to put it.
yeah, it was like I just didn't want to. Like I don't know what it was, but that wasn't even for
All right.
me. That's not the worst part. The worst part to me was that when we got on the buses and we were back at the place Job Corps, I like basically like didn't I basically it's exaggeration, but I basically ran to my dorm room. I didn't say goodnight to her or nothing. Like I just went straight there, didn't say
Pretty
goodbye to
nervous.
anybody. Like it was like, man, I felt like looking back, I feel like it was like I would have been surprised if she would have like cut me off after that. Like, but she didn't because we were young. But I
It was
like
uncomfortable.
that like
It was
man,
nervous. It was embarrassing,
yeah.
probably a little bit, because you had other people there too,
That
right?
you just said the word. You just said the word for sure. Embarrassing. And you know
Yeah.
what? You just made me think about my Mac. Is that I've always been the guy who liked somebody. Oh, sorry. I think you're saying something. Were you saying
No, no,
something?
no. Go ahead. No, no, I wasn't. You've always been the guy that
Oh,
likes
okay.
someone
I, I've
or
always been
somebody.
I've always been the guy that liked somebody, and then like even like let's say they even showed me that they liked me, I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't say a word. But then the moment they became unavailable, I was more confident telling them.
Hmm. All right.
I've always been that guy. I remember the
There's a
friend I
reason
had in
for it.
there. Yeah, the friend I had who told me I was charming. She was like, she was kind of the person who put it in my mind, like, oh yeah, I am pretty charming. Because she was like, she was really like, she was the type, she was one of those, like she was the type she worked. Even at, back then, she worked out. She was older than us though. She came in with us, but she was a little older. But she was very mature. She was the type of person who was very like aware, self-aware. She worked out. She was like, she could help you kind of like figure stuff out about yourself. And I remember her telling me she was charming. And I think looking back, we probably could have had a good relationship, but I never like thought like I never like let myself think that because we were really good friends. And then the moment she started dating another guy, I was like, man, I like her. And then I
Well,
kind of
that's what.
confessed to her, which I feel like was a bit inappropriate because
It's
she
like,
had a guy, so
well,
I
dude,
think
when
that
you
was a
live
bit
long.
inappropriate. But
Well, I mean, you're 28 now, so you've seen some windows close. I've said that before. It's like sometimes there's a window, right? Like someone likes you at work, or
yeah,
you guys are kind of flirting, and she's cute, and then like you're like you think when, especially when you're passive like that, or like when you're like not wanting to make a move, you're like that window will be there. And then when the window closes, it's like what the fuck? It's like wait a minute, right? So that's what happens though when you tend to be more like let that go. All right, so let's go to the next question. In each of these events that we just kind of went through, what is the relationship between the event and your current situation in life?
mm,
If you want me to say that again, I can too, or elaborate.
um, is that basically asking? Oh yeah, elaborate a little bit because I think I get what it's asking. But if you elaborate, I think I can answer better.
Sure. So, in each of these events, so we talked about, so like if we're going to talk about events, we have the cinema with the
Yeah,
Job Corps group, where you had this
yeah,
kind of bad date, we'll just call it, right? Bad situation. Number
yeah,
two, right? And that's fine. Like, and cool to
yeah.
laugh about it. This helps, dude. Like, it's funny. It was a bad date. This is common for humans. You're not crazy. Uh, what was the other one? You mentioned um
I think
being. I'm
my
sorry,
ex, like my
being.
first love, was a good decision.
Yeah, but also when you said like looking back at 19, you didn't know it probably, but you were like really depressed. And I would add to that, I don't want to
Yeah,
put thoughts in your head, but some people when they have to, so you went to elementary, middle school, high school, I'm assuming, right? And then from there
yeah,
you
yeah.
went to Job Corps, but you had like all those places you lived in the same home.
Um,
Did you have to
I
move
believe
quite
yeah,
a bit when you were
because for the
young?
most, uh, I've moved a few times,
Okay.
but it was almost always the same places though. I would move in between
But you'd
certain
stay in the
places.
same school. So like if you changed houses, you still went to the same high school.
Uh, I think yeah, no, I think I went to the same elementary and high school. I went to the same school the whole way through.
Because I was just gonna say this Job Corps thing, beyond the fact that you said you didn't go into detail, but you were like a lot of stuff was going on outside of Job Corps. Like and just by
Yeah, my
chance,
parents were like getting divorced.
well, there you go, bud. Like you
Yeah,
might not have been telling everyone that, but it's kind of like if people are talking about the movies and like sports and shit and your parents are getting divorced, it's like you got a heavier thing on your mind. So like you getting up and walking away from talking, that's probably what was, and the fact that your pop was, or your dad, excuse me, was sick or just starting, like you got a lot going on. But I'd also add, like anytime you start a new school, I've noticed this with clients because I do this living life review. I haven't really advertised it, but
yeah,
I just do it with repeat clients. And like if you had to go, like for example, I didn't have to do this, but like let's say sophomore year you moved and you had to go to a whole new school, like in a different district with all new people. It's fucking traumatic for some people because it's like, dude, you walk into that school
oh
knowing no
man,
one. You're 16, like all your friends were at another school. You might not be a part of the, you know what I mean? You might get fucked with because you're new. Like I never had that happen, but a lot of my
like
clients, they that's a big trigger for them. Like having, so
I
when you
did
go to
transfer
Job
in grade
Corps,
school.
oh, okay, how was it when you did that?
Um,
Was
Man,
it tough?
it was. I think so because it was like I think
Okay.
that might have been around the time. Well, damn, I think my parents split up. You know what? I think the basic way to put it is that like there probably I don't want to say there wasn't a lot of stability, but let's just say I probably I know what it feels like to not have because we weren't the richest family. Like I wouldn't say I was poor completely, but I definitely there was some food. We definitely how can I say? I don't want to say this.
Struggled,
Um,
struggled financially, or
yeah, we definitely had financial struggle.
there was
Because
some
to go
strain.
into my mom, another thing about it was she never really had jobs growing up. So my dad was the sole provider basically.
Okay.
So it was like imagine like a household with like kids and then like only one person. And I mean, there were times where he was working at McDonald's. So imagine what that's like trying to take care of a family.
I'm with you. I'm with you. All right. So
And
let's
that just came
we'll
out. Like I didn't think about that. That was just funny.
we'll come back to the parent thing because that's like going to be the next question.
Yeah.
So are you okay with time talking? Because I have plenty of time. We're going to go through this whole thing. It's going
Oh
to take a
yeah, I'm
little bit
off
of time.
work tomorrow.
Okay,
It's 1
cool.
o'clock for me, but I'm off work. So
You're a night owl, anyways. Okay.
yeah.
So, in each of these events, this is the question we were on. What is the
Oh yeah, yeah,
relationship between the event and your current situation in life? So, the way I would say this is we talked about the cinema bad date. We talked about you being depressed, like when you were 19, like really depressed, like you're already aloof or keep to yourself kind of a guy. But that at the
yeah,
same time, like you were off. You were off at that time. You also mentioned briefly about, and I felt that when I say that, like I felt the energy in my back that you mentioned your dad and the cookies and like being there for him.
yeah,
So you mentioned that event. Um, so those are three events, right? And then you had the
yeah,
breakup that was you didn't try hard enough. That was like an LDR, and and it was a bit traumatic when she sent you the picture, which I'm with you. And
yeah.
then so those are the events. So your current situation is like mapping out like why you don't show love easier and why you question people's intentions, I think is what maybe what we're going at, if I'm
Mm.
correct. Um so in those events, in each of those events, what is the relationship between the event and your current situation where you're like you want to unpack like being a little bit more affectionate and being a little bit more open to when like this current woman that you just dated was pretty nice and
Yeah.
you didn't receive that well. So those in each of those events or one of those events, if you can't unpack them all, what's the relationship you think?
Interestingly enough, I think those situations, I'm very self-aware about because it's so funny. Even though I say like, it's hard for me to, be affectionate and stuff. I'm very self-aware. Those situations definitely made me self-aware. Like when it comes to depression and stuff. If these days, if I feel like I'm not in the best mood or I'm depressed, I make sure to like pinpoint why. Because I'm just the type of person because of those situations. I don't like just being a certain way for the sake of it. Like I don't want to be the guy walking around with like slouch shoulders and giving off a bad vibe. And then when somebody asks you what's wrong, I can't tell you why. And then even though like all the stuff I'm telling you that I feel like I'm still flawed about, I'm like very conscious of it. It's more about like you said, just getting over the mental hurdle or the block that that's there where I don't just do it and I think about it. Cause like okay, so for example, I have a cousin. He's like a year younger than me, but he's married, and I think like, man, how was he able to kind of like he's somebody I look at where I'm like, man, he had faith and love to do that. Like there was probably no hesitation. And then so I sometimes would think like what was different for him and how are people like that. I look at people who are like that. And obviously social media, you don't want to look at that and like want to mirror it because that's just it could it's for show. But I do look at that stuff and I'm like, man, like it still looks fun though. It looks like nice though. And I tell myself I look at that, it's like even though I don't want that to be, I don't want to be fake about it. That I still want to be that guy. I want to be the guy who's able to just have a like where your girlfriend is like your best friend, and like you gotta like even the girl I'm telling you about. I always told myself, hey, when I have a relationship, I want to have a secret handshake, just that kind of stuff. And then when we finally made one, like a few days before she left, she was like, finally, because I would one thing about it I'll say is that I was really vulnerable. I felt like I could say stuff to her that I normally wouldn't say, which was a little weird. So going back to the question, I do think I'm just very conscious and self-aware about how I show up. You
Okay.
know,
I like the way
I'm
you said
very
that.
like, yeah, like I'm like, if I do something that but like, let's say for example, like I do something out of character, I'm the type of person I'll look and be like, now, why did I do that?
Where you're
You
analytical.
know, yeah, I'm really analytical.
Yeah. Sometimes that serves us, and sometimes it
Yeah, it
uh,
definitely takes a few opportunities away for sure.
yeah, because it's the paradox of choice. It's a paradox of thoughts, right? Like you're on one end,
Oh man,
you're going through all the things that could go wrong and could go right, and then you don't make a move because
oh man, don't get me started on that, man.
I
I'm
just had a
like,
client a few days ago that was we were talking about this. It was it's not it serves you in some things, right? And then the other things it's overthinking. So
oh
all
man,
right, so
that's like a I'm a over. Well, I'm not as a big overthinker as I used to be, but that was a
well,
big thing for me.
it probably served you. Was your dad an overthinker or your mom?
Um,
Were they analytical? Are they is one of your
my
parents the type to
dad, let me
are
think.
they
My dad was
are they
really like, oh, go ahead.
like yeah, like because before earlier, the reason you were saying you're analytical is you just don't want to get taken advantage of, or you don't trust people sometimes, like
Right.
their what their intentions are. Was one
Yeah.
of your parents like that, or both?
I don't think so. I think if anything, my
That's
dad was
okay.
really like, um, cause it's so funny because what you asked me that question has made me realize I didn't know my mom. I didn't know my mom until
Okay.
adulthood. I didn't know her.
Until when?
Like she was my mom, obviously, but I didn't really get to know her until adulthood.
Until what? I didn't understand what you
Oh,
said
sorry,
after that. I'm sorry.
adulthood, like being an
Okay.
adult. Like I was an adult when I got to ask her certain questions. Wait, what'd you say?
Okay. All right. So that goes into my next question. So like flows
Yeah.
perfectly. So tell me about your parents, siblings, and close family members. What is the relationship between this person and your current situation? Let's just start with your mom. So you didn't
My
know your
mom.
mom. You didn't know your mom till you were an adult.
Oh, when I say
That's,
that, I mean like as a person. I don't mean
I know
like
what you mean.
as okay.
I know what you mean. I got you. I'm saying so in your current situation of not being perhaps more loving or more open, and not having the ability to, having that block that we talked about. What do you think? What do you think your relationship with your mom's contributed to that?
Well, I mean, in my adulthood, we were able to talk about that stuff. Like we were able to talk about
Good.
because I mean, like I remember like she told me she loved me once specifically that I remember because, like I said, it wasn't like she was just. We say it when we talk now, but um, our relationship is more like uh, it was more. It's definitely I would say it's more like like their kids where they talk to their mom about everything. Like we were able to like when we after we were able to hash out all that stuff, and I was able to like talk to her about like the distance because we were able to talk about it in a mature manner. Then it was like okay, I would talk to her about my situations with women. I would like talk to her about it, and she's a woman, so like I don't think she gives the best advice sometimes. I don't really talk to her about that stuff much because even now I'm really like I'm not like just talking to a lot of people. I have like my a few close group chats and stuff, but it's sporadic. There's love there, but it's just like I'm not. There are families that are really close. I'm more close to my family in thought than like action.
Okay. What about you had a brother, right?
Yeah, we're twins, so we live together. So that's like you know,
Oh wow. So is
Yeah.
there anything that you think what is the relationship between your brother and this current situation? Is there anything there for that?
Oh no, my let me think about that because our
Yeah, take a
relationship
minute.
is great, man. You know, even yeah, because even us, we had like certain quirks, like in terms of like the way we show love. Because like you know, looking back, like growing up, it was always like give and take. It was almost like conditional. When like if you wanna, you know what, a perfect example, Mac. Like
I'm listening.
my mom would like go to the store and buy us chips, and we could have the same chips, and we would like trade the chips. It could be the same bag, and it was always like, hey, I want a piece of that honey bun. Well, you got to give me some of your drink. Like for the longest time, it was like that. And even sometimes now, it's still hard for us to get out of it. For the most part, we do it, but there's times where it's like, hey, let me get a piece of that sandwich or something. And it's like, oh, when was the last time you gave me something? But I think we're past that where it's like really serious. It's more just like, okay, just give me a piece of the sandwich, you know. But like growing up, it was really like, hey, you want a piece of the sandwich, you got to give me some of that juice or something.
Hmm. So maybe, I mean,
It was really, it was,
just thinking about that, like what you said about conditional. Maybe when you're in certain relationships, you're thinking, well, if I do this, what are you going to do next? It could be,
it's
because
so
even
funny
though
you say that.
your brother's not a romantic relationship, but romantic relationships mirror some things as far as like just being close. You know what I mean? Just how you are with people you're close to. So
Yeah.
you might be thinking that like, well, maybe I didn't do enough to get that kiss, or I don't know, because that's interesting that's
It's so funny. It's so funny you use the word conditional because uh, I remember every like when I would go through a breakup because I we didn't talk we haven't talked about it, but I did have a I had an even worse breakup after that one, after my first breakup. The girl I dated before this last one, but uh, the reason I bring it up is because I remember every time I would go on that low, you know, after you go through a breakup, you go on that quick spurt of like a self improvement journey, and unconditional love was always unconditional love was always a big theme for me after those. I'm like, man, unconditional love, like that was definitely a theme for me, like that I wanted to pick up on.
yeah.
But yeah, you
All
always do
right.
have that spurt of like, hey, let's do some something. Yeah, but unconditional love, you saying that it was like that's it. Like yeah,
All right. So what about do you have any other siblings than your twin
yeah, I
brother?
have three sisters.
Oh, wow.
So one of my
Is there
sisters
any,
actually work with me now. So we didn't really. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, is there a
Yeah, what'd you say?
relationship between one of these siblings in your current situation? So you got that with your twin. Um,
Yeah.
is there any other situations with the siblings?
My youngest sister, she works with me now, so we talk more. We talk like every once in a while, like in terms of because like I have a certain relationship with her where like I pretty much if she asks for something I'll give it to her, no questions asked. But it's so like you say, you look back at certain things as childhood that makes me that way.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's necessarily important,
Okay.
but
What about?
because like for example, like she was like, let's say somebody did something, um, and then like we get in trouble, blame it on the younger sibling. But like I look at that stuff now and I'm like, man, that was a really shitty thing to do as kids. So now I'm
Sure.
like, okay, so now I'll be like, hey, like if I just really like being there for her. But I don't know if that's necessarily like really like something like monumental. But I do,
No.
but say I'm just saying like our relationship because we work together it's a little more close now just because like I see her more often. But I think that's what it's like most relationship with family members. If for me now it's like I don't see them often, so it's not like we talk a lot. I love them, but I just don't talk to them because we don't. I don't see them.
And the little brother?
Well, my brother, he's my only brother. Then I have two older sisters. I just talked to one of my older sisters the other day, but it's more.
Okay.
But yeah, we talk every once in a while because like I just felt like talking to her. I was like, I felt like checking up on her because she moved to Ohio. So,
Was
but
now
that's the kind
this
of stuff I try to do now. I'll go ahead.
was there, because you got a big family here? Was there a favorite in the family?
I don't think so. My
Oh, that's
grandma
pretty good.
definitely. My grandma, but my grandmother did have favorites. Me and my brother. because me and my brother and my youngest sister are we have the same dad, but my other sisters don't.
Okay.
So my grandmother definitely favored me and my brother over my little sister for sure.
Okay. So it's just something that comes up when I talk to people that affects them later on sometimes. Um, and doesn't sound like that's one of those things that affects you because like people carry that. They're like, oh, my younger brother got all the attention, da, 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 da. And
No,
they can carry over in relationships. All right. So what's the uh, with your dad? I know he passed away, but is there any relationship between him and your current situation?
it's so crazy. I had a dream about him the other day. So it's just
Hmm.
like most of the time, really, my relationship with him and my situations is anytime I go through something, I'm just like, man, because that first breakup I told you about, he was the person I went to, because he lived down the street from me for a
Hmm.
while before he died. He had a girlfriend. He lived down the street from me. When I lived
Hmm.
at my grandma's house, well, she passed away, and so we stayed in the house. But he lived down the street, and man, when I tell you, every day I would just go spend the night at his house, and we would just talk. Like I told you, I would bring him cookies and stuff, and he would just like talk to me, and he would talk me through my breakup. He was there, like I was at his house when I did a coaching session with Margaret from Craig Kenneth's channel. And by the way, don't do it, guys. But
Okay.
but yeah, like that was mostly. But I say all this to say, usually my relationship with him and that is, anytime I go through something, I just like, man, I wish you were here to talk to you about this stuff. I
Hmm.
literally said that to myself the other day because, like,
Hmm.
yeah, we was like, man, I would just talk to him about it, and I almost looked at him like a protector because, like, in even the dream I had the other day, in the dream,
Hmm.
I was like, it was a weird dream. Obviously, it's a dream, so it's weird, but I was like a hostage, but he was on top of me, like covering me. So in the dream, I cried because I'm like, you're not supposed to be here. Because obviously he passed away. So in the dream, I was very conscious of the fact that he was there. So I was like,
So he was
man, and it made
protecting
me,
you in the dream?
yeah, like he was on top of me. Like he was like, imagine being laid out on your stomach and then somebody like shielding you by being on top of you.
Mm.
And then because in my current situation, I was definitely thinking like, man, I wish I could talk to you about this. Because even though the situation wasn't like, I wasn't devastated. There was a, like a day where I was like, man, because like I said, I felt kind of bad for just blocking her, and I'm like, man, I do wish I could have got this out and talked to her. But then I'm like, man, I used to talk to my dad about stuff to get it, sorry, to get it out.
Well, he's still with you.
Yeah. For sure, because man, every once in a while, I just have a dream about him that just like I'm like very aware, like what the heck?
Mm. It's not a coincidence that you were thinking about him and he did that. So, all right. So the next, we'll circle back to that. Okay. Tell me about your childhood and relationship to this problem. We kind of talked about that, but has anything else come up about your childhood and relationship
Mm,
to this problem? So you did mention which sounds like really small, but came to your mind about passing out the papers in class. Is there anything else like that?
yeah, let me see. Mm, I do think I might have had like some. Um, well, I don't know,
Was there
because
any
growing
abuse when
up,
you were young? Did you get hit a lot, or did someone hit someone else in front of you
I got whippings, but it was usually like
when you were bad?
it was like the typical stuff, but then like at a certain point it did stop, and it was more like going back to my dad. It was more like it became a thing of, hey, I'm disappointed in you. And that for me became like worse than a whooping, where it was
I'm
like,
with you.
uh, yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't say that was abuse really.
Was there any? All right, I'm not saying it is. I just asking. So I wouldn't say it is either. I got hit a few times when I was young too, and I wouldn't call it abuse.
Yeah.
But um, was there a time when you disappointed one of your parents and or got hit, and you did something where you showed affection or kindness to a girl?
Mhm. Wait, you say that one more time?
Was there a time that you interacted with a girl when you were young or some kind of situation that um that you got in trouble for?
Oh man, it's so crazy you say that because I'm pretty sure. Oh man, I don't remember the exact situation, but I'm pretty sure I did get in trouble over a girl once. It's so funny you said that because as soon as you asked that question, a memory popped back in my mind. But I can't really remember specifics because it's been out of my mind for so long. But I'm pretty sure I did get my house called on me about a girl.
Your house got called?
Well, like like you get in trouble and
Like
the
when your
school
teacher
calls your
calls
house.
when you're yeah, like
Yeah,
you got in
yeah,
trouble at school. So you're
yeah.
really
I
young.
can't
All right,
remember what it was, but I'm pretty sure I did.
all right, so we'll just leave that alone and we'll see if that thought floats back later. That's how the mind works sometimes. Just leave it alone and then you might go, "Oh, it came to me now."
Yeah,
So I'm like, so we'll just leave it alone, but there's I don't know. So there's maybe there's something with that. All right. So um and that might flow to you in a day or two and you email me like, "Hey, that thing came up, dude." Cuz that might be it. Like if you got in trouble for like hitting a girl or I don't know, doing something,
you know,
like
thinking
kids
about it, I
do.
think I did fight her. I might have fought her. I'm not. We was. I was like in like sixth grade, I think, sixth, seventh grade. I don't know. Like I remember it was something like that where maybe like sh- something happened. Oh man, it'll come back to me. It'll come back
It'll
to
come
me.
back to you. All right, cuz that like those are the kinds of things that can contribute where you're like, "Don't touch her." Like when you go out, even though you don't see that association, and especially the fact that your mind blocked it, that your mind's
Yeah,
blocking it right now when we're being pretty open, that means that you again, I don't throw traumatic moment. It means that that moment touched you and it set a rule in place. So it's just like, dude, when you touch a burning stove, you don't do it again. It's like
yeah,
you do something and you get a lot of trouble for it when you're little, like that babysitter moment I talked about it. Like the babysitter just made this big deal out of something when I was a little kid. And I like when I pulled that up, I'm like, oh shit. That was enough for me to be like, oh, like can't do those things or for the rest of your life. All right. So the next question is, and this is usually a question like people ask me to say again, is there a purpose for having this problem?
Is there a purpose for having this problem?
Whatever comes to mind, ask your unconscious, subconscious mind.
I definitely think you know how they say like you like go in cycles. You deal until you fix like a certain thing, it's gonna keep happening to you. I think
Mm.
this is the thing for me. Like every time, like I literally, anytime I deal go through this type of breakup, it's literally for the same exact thing. Cause you
What's
know
the
what it
reason?
is, Mac.
What's the
You
same
know what it
exact
is,
reason?
Mac.
Yeah.
You know what it is. Every time I've been through a breakup. I've always told myself, not only I would always say like I didn't do everything. I don't want to not everything in the dramatic sense, but I didn't do everything I could have to make the situation good. I always leave the situation knowing that I wasn't like the no affection thing has always played a huge role. It's always been like I've never been broken up with, and I did like everything right. Like you know how some people are like, oh, like everything was good. I would do this for them, and they always give you a list of reasons why the relationship was so good. So they're almost blindsided because everything was good. That's never been the case for me. I've always could tell why I got broken up with.
Who is the person that gave you this list or told you this?
Me.
Ah,
Because like it's always the same reason. I'm like, and if the girls always have the same reason, they're like,
you're not affectionate
you
enough or you're
don't you
not
don't
making enough
stay like
effort.
right. Like it always was like, you know, because
So what comes to mind when I say what do you think the purpose is of having this problem?
what comes to mind to fix
Anything.
it. to get
No,
better.
no, 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 no,
I
no,
feel
no,
like
no,
I'm.
no, not to
Oh,
fix it. Not to fix it. Is there a purpose? So let me give you an example before we go deeper on that question. So to just give
okay.
you a perspective. For example, let's say someone's like, "Oh, I got this back pain and neck pain. I can't get rid of it, doctor. I can't get rid of it." And the doctor starts talking to the guy, and then the guy's like, "Well, I actually have this court case coming up where I got in an accident and I'm suing them." And I'm saying that I'm injured, but I really wasn't that injured. But now I have this neck and back pain. There's a secondary gain to that neck and back pain that the
Yeah.
brain's telling the guy to have that pain. So a lot of times when we have a problem, this is enlightening when you understand this because you're analytical. You'll start looking at things differently.
I think I get
Is
it
that,
now. Yeah, I think I get it.
yeah, like, and I'm not saying you know what the secondary gain is. And sometimes the second, like, that's a secondary gain. You're like, oh, you're suing someone for a lot of money. I don't
Oh
think
no,
that's
I
a
had
good
that. You
thing.
know what? I got the answer, man.
All right, good. Go.
Yeah, I think I got the answer. So I think the purpose is like a defense mechanism. Because
Okay.
you know what it is? It's almost like, you know what? You almost feel like Nostradamus. It'd be like, it's like, oh man, the relationship deteriorated. But it was like, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy for me. It's almost like, it almost validates me feeling that way. Like it's almost like it's almost like me validating to myself
Oh,
the
because
behavior in itself.
you already wrote the ending to the book, so you don't want to be wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like being like, it's almost
Yeah.
like, hey man, like she wasn't like, oh, they were gonna betray me anyway. So it's just basically like it's exactly what I thought was gonna happen. That's and you know what? I wasn't affectionate because I knew they were gonna do that.
And you value being correct. You usually like your
Oh
intuition and your
man, for sure.
analytics.
Yep. Yep.
Mm. So there you go. So I understand what you mean. So you're what you don't realize is by saying that, assuming that you're going to make it true, because then your subconscious would be like, well, what are we doing here? We're making these choices for you. So, all right, that's good that you realize. So now, hopefully, next time you're in one of these situations and you're like, wait a minute, I know the problem. So you don't need to create like a, Cinderella Snow White fairy tale story, but like maybe you're wrong next time. Maybe this situation is going to work out. Maybe this is going to be the time that you change it. So what you're saying is because you know or you feel that she's not as interested or she's not going to want to give you a kiss or she doesn't like you that much, that you just make it true, right?
You
Right.
know, no, because I think when it comes to like a physical affection, I can do that. It's more like I feel like it's almost lean. I almost lean too far into the physical where it's more than that. It takes more than just that.
Okay. All right. So this is when did you choose to have this situation created? Why? Is there anything that comes up for that question?
Say that again.
Mm-hmm. When did people always ask me to say that one when we do this exercise? When did you choose to have this situation created?
Yeah, can you expand on that? That's a little
Um,
confusing.
no problem. What I think it means, my opinion is that, um, so for example, that idea about the accident, someone's in an accident, they're literally thinking in the car, like, the police come over and whatever, they get rear-ended. Someone's actually thinking, depending on their character and their personality, all right, I can sue this person, right? Like I can get money from this. Or this is totally random, but it just comes to my mind. My mom was rear-ended years back, bad, by a drunk driver on the Bay Bridge in the Bay Area. Like bad, like fucked up the frame of the car. And I'm like, Mom, like, couldn't you take the guy to court? And my niece and nephew were in the car, her grandkids, like they were young. And she's like, yeah, I don't do that. Like, guy was drunk. So like there's some people that don't do that, right? Someone that sues people would assume like everyone does it. So I'm saying that
Yeah.
in that, you know what I'm saying? Someone would be like, oh, I'm going to get paid on this. Like this dude's drunk and he rear-ended me. It's all his fault. I'm saying in that situation, my mom's thing was she created like, oh, everyone's safe. Let me pull over. Let the police handle it. Yeah, he was drunk, but we're okay. The insurance is going to pay for the car. Where someone else would create back pain so they can sue him. You feel me? So I'm saying that like whatever, and sometimes people tell me I don't know how to answer that. Like I never created this, and I just leave it alone. But does anything come up for you? When did you have this situation created?
You know, I usually create it the moment somebody does something that makes me uncomfortable, and I don't speak up about it.
Got it. Perfect. And that's a situation that can happen a lot. So, all right, man, this is ironic. I was just talking to my mother about speaking up about, we were talking about some other situation, but the fact that when you don't speak up, you get resentment and you get more angry, and
Yep.
and then you act out like passive aggressive would be the technical word, or you hold it so much and then but you never said what you want. Where I was like telling my mother, like people I know that just they get pissed for like 20 minutes, they don't trip because they just let it all out. They just get pissed. Like they're blunt about things. It's not always the best way to do things, but they don't hold it. So you're saying one of the things you're doing wrong, you're holding it in, you're building resentment, literally like, oh, you did
Yeah.
that to me. Instead of like asking a good question to figure out, which you're a good question asker, you said before, you're analytical, maybe
Yeah.
a question that's not so intrusive of, because there's a difference between accusational questions, like a key, like, well, I
Yeah.
know you don't care about me, or I know you're talking to this other guy, and then saying something like, hey, let me ask you something. I know I asked you before. Is there anything else that like you want to tell me about you and that guy that I didn't get? That's a little bit more
Yeah. Because you know what's
neutral,
so funny?
rather than I know you guys hooked
Because I
up.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Because you yeah. Because you know what? You asking that question made me think about the situation. There were times where one minute she would come tell me about the disrespectful stuff he said about her to her because he saw her talking to me, and then I would like in my mind I would be like I wanted to ask her like you know what like the whole like looking back on the whole situation I always wanted to ask her why do you let him like if he disrespects you so much, and obviously we were coworkers so she saw him every day type, you know, she would see him pretty often, but it was like I did want to ask her, he disrespected you so much and all this other stuff. So why do you keep letting them like why do you keep engaging with them? You know? And it would be stuff was like a certain situation a certain situation would happen. I would want to be like, hey, like I would want to ask about it, like, hey, like, you know, you say like you don't like really like you talk to me like you don't like this guy, he's all this stuff. But you guys talk a lot. And
That's
then you know what?
accusation.
And the reason wait, because I was gonna say like going like out of to your last question, something would happen and I would almost retaliate. It would be like I would like not be so like we said affectionate. I would not be so affectionate. Like I wouldn't talk to her, and she would be like come up to me ask if something is wrong, and I'll be like no, I'm good. You know, I'm just here focusing on my work and stuff. But I was obviously bothered about something.
Well, to in that particular situation, you're not going to air it out at work. That'd be kind of
Yeah,
silly and stupid. But like now that one thing that I come back to in my own life is like seek to understand, not to be understood. And I don't always do it, right?
yeah,
Like,
me neither. I know exactly.
you know what I mean? Like, but it's in my head now, right? Like, wait a minute, maybe I'm wrong about this. And like, just ask him more. Because in that particular situation, you're like, let me talk to you after work. I want to ask you a couple of things. If that's like, can we meet up? Whether that's for, coffee or whatever. And then ask those questions. And just now that we've talked about this, just be aware. So the next question is the golden question. It's
Wait, can I ask you a question really quick about that? Because
absolutely.
one of the things one of the things I've always tried to avoid is I didn't want to become the guy where every time we had to talk, it was a dramatic situation where we have to like hash something out, you know? And I think that's why I'm always like, that's why I avoid confrontation sometimes. Because I don't want to be the guy where like, oh, we only see each other at work, but it's always going to be some dramatic stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's my job to have dramatic conversations sometimes. But guess what? We've talked about some pretty
Oh no, I'm
dramatic.
asking you how to like balance that. I'm
No, I'm
asking you like,
telling
how
you.
do you balance that? Okay,
I'm
okay.
telling you. Like I'm saying that for me, I've learned that So this conversation we had and these set of questions we had and the way I approached it with you, I don't know you that well. I know you're on the live stream a lot, but you've never done a live coaching. You know me, I remember stuff. So I know where you're from and I know
Yeah.
like kind of how you are and stuff, but I don't know you that well. But in the moment while you're answering those questions, the way you're answering the questions, I'm treating you, or I shouldn't say I'm treating you. I should say the way we're conversating, going back and forth, I would maybe do it differently with someone else with rapport being different for different people. Like if someone's 66 years old and they want to talk about when they were on the farm and slower, and do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying that it's not a one size fits all when you talk to people. And you're already said like you're observant, you're analytical, you probably notice this. So like if you approached this girl you worked with, you approached the girl that was the LDR from a long time ago, it would be different. That's the whole thing about YouTube and the internet now. They're giving you information for like, do this with all women. It's like, all right, you want to get deeper? It's like you learning the other person might help you with how you approach things. Mm-hmm. So when you want to approach that, you think about, all right, if I'm like I said, you still want to be authentic to yourself. I'm not suggesting you be fake. I'm saying that definitely find a way to ask the question in your way, but also honoring what they might be sensitive about. Does that make, you know what I mean? Because people are sensitive about things rather than, oh, they just don't want to talk about it. I want to make a big deal out of it. Like, I don't want to make it, you don't have to make it dramatic. Like me and you have talked about some dramatic things and not been dramatic.
Yeah.
Right? Did I make a big deal about something? You know what I mean? I did that because I sense it. Like and I also, the best way you can be, especially when you talk to people about certain things, is neutral, which is more like, okay, this is a pretty heavy thing about your dad. I didn't make a big deal about it. I said, okay. I said, all right. And we talked about it a little bit. I could have made that a very dramatic part of our conversation. I didn't. So when you, I know what you're saying. Like, I don't want to be that person. Hey, and it's so funny you said this, because when I was back in the Bay Area a few times, I'm like, God, everyone's so fucking dramatic with like, I mean, I overheard, like, I was in an area in the Bay Area, I heard these girls that look like they were teenagers, like at a bench, like downtown hanging out. And they're like, I wanted to confront you, Sally. And you know what? When you say these things, you really hurt me. I was like, what are you watching reality TV or something? You're 15, dude. Like what? Like I overheard it. When my niece calls it ear hustling. You're just like, you're like, and I'm like, that to me is like what you're talking about, I think, from movies and stuff. But I think that you can do it in your own way that's not dramatic. That's, hey, let's talk about it. And if they make it a dramatic situation, then you can steer it back. Like I think in your situation, it was just difficult when you all work together. And that triangle, it's just a bad situation because the dude's he wants to make it a problem. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so the deeper you got into that, even if you would have made the right moves, you still got this dude to deal with that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You know what I'm saying? That situation, you're just better off out of it. The fact that now she doesn't work with you and you sent that text, yeah, maybe you're regretful because maybe like, but on the flip side, when you're working together, it's an awkward situation all the way around. And you like your job. So I would say that in the future, like when you get that, you're like, oh, I'm doing it again. Check yourself and be like, all right, let me just ask. Let me ask the question I really want to ask. And let me ask it in a way that's just direct and clean. And if the person's like, wow, what do you mean by that? No, I don't mean anything by it. I just want to know, just like I've been asking you questions. I haven't been like, just like when you're like, can you elaborate on that? Sure. Instead of you being like, what do you mean by that? See how it's just a different approach? And even if you did say like, what do you mean by it? I wouldn't be triggered by it. Or if you're like, oh, you're just asking me this because that. No, it's mental gymnastics. It's mental martial arts. It's like, no, you're not going to get me. You'd have to, like, so.
Have you ever had a coaching session like that?
What's that?
Have you ever had a coaching session like that? where you could tell they
Um,
were looking to be like offended by you?
no, no.
Okay.
And I've talked to a lot of different people. I'm pretty good with different because I've
I'd
worked a lot.
imagine most
Like
people come to you are pretty chill. Because I mean,
that's
yeah,
my
I'd imagine
personality.
most
You
people coming
attract
to
who you
you
are.
that
Yeah. Most of
yeah.
the people I have a. I'm trying to think. There's only one person in like 5 years, and he was just late 20s, and he was just in a bad place with his job and everything like that. And he just kept like, so what? How am I going to get her back? You haven't told me how. It's like he wouldn't. You know what I mean? It was like you're probably not. Like his situation. I'm not the one to guarantee you anything. I didn't put that in my website. So was I a little frustrated at first? No, because it was also like, to be honest, like he didn't. It wasn't going to happen, and it was obvious. And like I'm not. I'm not good. That's not my place where I'm coming from. But I haven't really had someone offended, because I would say that if someone was offended, I would just unwind that. All right, so so a really good book is the Four Agreements. It's tell the truth, don't make assumptions, don't take things personally, which is really hard, and number 3 or 4, do your best. Like when you can get that locked in your mind, like don't take things personally. If you accuse me of that, then I can unwind it with you. Like, oh, you think that? All right, well, I didn't. That wasn't my intention. That you thought I meant it that way. What I meant by that is this. I think you took me the wrong way. And also a good
Yeah.
word to use. I think we had a misunderstanding, because misunderstanding is different than
I'm gonna say
you
that
did
one.
this.
I'm gonna say that.
You did this. You did. I think we had a misunderstanding. It's helped me a lot too with living in another country with a different language, with different culture. I'm a foreigner here, so I'm always coming across situations where, like I have to have more patience. I was a teacher for
Oh wait,
years.
are you fluent in the language?
20-30%. It's
Because
a
I
very
rem-
difficult
yeah,
language.
because I remember you were you knew a few words. You would I remember years ago watching you. You knew a few words, but I don't
It's a
remember if you knew you. Huh?
it's a, it's a very difficult language to go from English on. But
Okay.
I should. I've been here 13 years. So, all
Yeah.
right, let's get to the. All right, let's get to the
Yeah.
last
Let's get
question.
back to it.
Yeah, no problem. I don't mind you asking me questions though. Is there
Okay.
something your unconscious mind wants you to know, or is there something? And I can say this again if you need me to. Or is there something you're not getting, which if you got it would allow this problem to disappear?
Hmm. You know what? The first thing that came to mind is there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yes. I wasn't hoping for that answer, but it's a great answer. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like that was the first thing that popped in my mind. There's nothing to be afraid of. The world isn't gonna collapse on itself if you get like if somebody doesn't respond the way you want them to. It's not like nobody's gonna just like be rude about like being nice or anything. Because I mean I think I surround myself with good people. So it's actually like it's so funny that this is my issue because it's like I feel like I most people generally like me.
Well, dude, did you say you're 28?
Yeah.
Man, the crazy thing is, I've got a lot more clients in their 20s now, and it's like, man, you're still figuring things out, man. Like think about who you were when you were 22, or who you were when you were in that. Like, you've grown, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're not. You might have been afraid when you were, I don't know, 19 when you went to that movie theater, but that's not you now. You've made progress from then. Like, if you had that same situation now, you'd handle it a little different, probably. So, like those things that you went through, like when you say like don't nothing to be afraid of, maybe have that as a mantra in your head. Like, I don't have nothing to be afraid of, and back it up with your analytical mind. Like, I've done this, I've done that, I've been through this, I've been through that. Like when we all go through our own list, like everyone's got their own stuff, and everyone's shocked sometimes, like, oh, that happened to you, or you did this, or you did that. And there's nothing to be afraid of. So is there anything else that comes up?
Mm. Nothing coming to me now.
Okay.
I think that one is the main one, really.
Did that feel good? Like, did that feel right on in the sense like,
Yeah, because
okay,
I'm thinking about that. Like, man, because like how you just said, just say that to yourself in that moment. Like, I think a lot of stuff, like it would be so easy. Like, if I do that, like it'll be easier for me if I just say, hey, there's nothing to be afraid of.
yep. And just have that, like our number one thing, myself included, is like self-talk, right? We all have our own self-talk for different things. So, whatever's coming up during that time when you want to make a kiss, or you want to be a little bit nicer, or you want to ask that question that you're like, whatever, I'll just stonewall her instead. Like, be like, fuck this. I'm not going to be afraid. Doesn't mean to be, out of your character. You like who you are. You don't need to change who you are. That's why it's hard with this red pill stuff and all this stuff out there. It's like trying to change people's character. You like being a good guy. You like being, fairly nice. I take it. So go with that. And then when someone, like,
You know,
if you do confront someone, like you were talking about confronting her about that, whatever she responds with, just tell yourself, I'm not going to take it personal. Because you can always, when someone misunderstands your intentions, you can actually be like, well, like I said, that's a misunderstanding. We had a misunderstanding. You don't need to explain your point. I think we had a misunderstanding. What I was meaning, I think you mistook this is what I was meaning, because everyone perceives like, oh, I know this is what you meant. Really? You're in my fucking head? Like, that's not what I meant. So instead, like, I think we had a misunderstanding. What I meant was
I really like
this.
that phrase. I
It's
really like
good.
that. I think we
It's
had
a
a
little more
misunderstanding.
neutral. Yeah, like I think we had a misunderstanding here. And then it's not accusational, because everyone just gets defensive. Everyone gets defensive, And you're from a big city, man. Like, people that live in like New York, Chicago. I've never been there. Grandma was born there. But like, you're a little bit more on edge, right? You got more people, you got more
Yeah,
things going on. People are more like that, where they're like, and also more like, more observant about your surroundings, because you're around a lot of people. You got to be, right? Like, aware. That's part of your environment, I think. Right. So whenever I've lived in major cities, like I said, I lived in San Francisco for a little while, and it's like, it's different. It was different than living on the beach or something. I was like, wow, you just got to be a little bit more on point. You got to be a little more aware. What's going on? Who's this person behind me? What's going on over here? Like, that's kind of built
it's
in.
so
So
funny
when
because you would think I would be that way, but I think sometimes I'm a little too like I'm a little too aloof. Like sometimes I don't be paying attention to what's happening around me.
well, good.
You
So,
would,
all right. So this is a good example. I just made a point. I made an assumption about that, and then you were like, I
yeah,
don't think I'm like that. And then the way I would respond to that, okay, I was wrong. Maybe
yeah.
maybe that's just my own experience, rather than me being like, no, 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 no. Let me make sure I'm right about this. I don't need to be right. So when
No, you're
you
right. You're right in a way because you're right in the way in the sense that like I'm definitely like I'm focused on the things around me. I just mean like in terms of myself, where like I'm not like 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 you said in the big city, most people are like looking around them, looking at their surroundings, trying to like observe things, and then I'm just
just a
like
little bit more
I'm doing
than
that, but yeah,
just a little bit, like, because when you said like sometimes I'm assuming the worst, or sometimes I'm doing this, that might be a contribution to it. But like, I tell clients all the time, they're like, no, that's not it, Mac. I'm like, okay, I'm okay with being wrong.
yeah,
And it just kind of disarms people, because they're like, oh, and that's one of the privileges of not going and getting a PhD in psychology, because I don't follow a fucking textbook that says, oh, no, you're wrong. I read this in a book. I've got all these grades to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'll be like, all right, I just
yeah,
stick with, that's how you feel. And sometimes when you make the first move, like if you confronted this chick at work, or like I said, I wouldn't have done it at work anyways. It's just an awkward situation. You'd have to be afterwards. But if you did that, be prepared for a little pushback or a little attitude. And if it came up, you're like, you don't have to be weak about it. You just got to be like, no, I just had to ask you. It was bothering me.
you
It's been on my mind. And if you didn't want to respond to it or you feel uncomfortable about it, it's okay. But I had to ask because we work
Yeah, and
together.
it's funny. It sucks too because even just calling somebody, sometimes I overthink. I'll be like, it's easy to send a text or call somebody, but even that, I just don't do. Like that's not even, I complicate stuff like that too.
So just go nothing to be afraid of. Maybe that's your mantra. Because and in the past, it's very common to be afraid of those things because when you're in groups, right? Like those things that happen, like subcore, dude, we're so much more insecure when we're younger in groups, right? We care what people think and the friends and all that, myself included when I was younger. The greatest part about
Yeah.
getting older is you give a fuck less and less. Like,
Oh man, you're not lying
yeah,
about that.
you know what I mean? It's like, I'm 42 now. It's like I give a fuck way less than 10 years ago. Like about what
Man.
people think or something. My dad's 74. My dad can give a fuck about anything or anyone. I should have him on the live stream. He's hilarious. It's just like, and he's always kind of been that way, to be honest. But now it's like, he's just, it's part of getting older because you're like, all right, I've given a fuck about too much stuff that doesn't matter. But when you're 16, 17, 18, you're still close to that, Like
Yeah.
those environments for Job Corps, like what you said about your brother having a better situation, he might have just been mixed in with a different teacher, a different group, and that makes a difference. Like when I was a
Yeah.
teacher for years, all right, so I taught at this university for like 7 years. I taught at some other schools too. You'd get 5 to 6 classes of 30 to 40 kids at this school. They're like 20 to 22, the age I was teaching. Now you'd think like, and I would teach maybe the same course each semester, maybe a little different. It would always be different. Always. Because the dynamic of 35 kids would be dictated by those little leaders, those little ringleaders. So there'd be a ringleader for the smart kids. There'd be a
The
ringleader
boss.
for, you know what I'm saying? And if you had bad leaders, like I'm gonna do my own. I was a cool teacher. I was one of the laid back ones. I was a fun teacher. I got in trouble for giving too high a grade sometimes. So,
Oh really?
yeah, because I was like, I'm not gonna fail all these students or anything. But I'm saying that in those groups, the dynamic would be different. You know what I mean? So like you could have been a totally different dynamic from your brother just for having a different group of kids in your class. You get one, like, look at, if you get one disruptive, quote unquote, bully, this word that's used all the time now that I don't remember as a kid that much, but like, or you know what I mean? It can mess up your whole class. It could mess, like it could, someone that's like testing the teacher, all like, there's so much
Oh man, everybody hated
social
that kid.
dynamics to that. So now that you're like working in a stable job, with a regular group of people, you kind of learn people differently too. You're more, adverse to that. And it's a different culture within workplaces. It's like someone asked me about teaching. I'd be like, well, what grade do you want to teach? It's like, all right, start there. You want to teach high school? You want to teach elementary? All right. When you keep in mind, when you go to different schools, it's not the same job because it's different bosses with different curriculums. It's like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, think about it. You just think, oh, all teachers do the same thing. Not really. I've had schools where they're like, here's the curriculum. We have it written out. They're like really organized. Like everything's in place. Their standards are high. I've had other places like, go ahead, write whatever you want. You don't want to see my curriculum for the term? Nah, it's cool. It's like, what do you think's the better school? What do you think's the easier job? Right? Like, so those dynamics are always there. And getting it, like whatever that experience was when you were at that Job Corps thing, that was just a moment in your life. And it's okay. Because guess what? You're going to come across someone like that in your own life, and you're going to be able to help that person out when they're down or if they ignore you. Or you're like, you all right now? You okay? Like you probably built in a little bit of empathy for other people sometimes, maybe.
And that leads into what I was going to ask you. Do you feel like doing this coaching stuff, it helps you like deal with like, because I know you always say you don't get like anxiety and stuff, but I mean like if you go through a breakup like yourself or something like that, like do you feel like doing this job or makes it any easier for you?
Yes.
Or do because I mean I do know like you still have feelings. You're not like a robot just because you do this, but
Hell
I
no,
mean does
man.
it make
Look at,
it
I'm the only
easier? Did it
person that
make it
does these
easier
live
though?
streams. I think I divulge the most about my personal character of anyone on this space with these live
Yeah.
streams, right? I don't know if it helps, like, but yeah, because like I've done this. I keep saying 5 years, but it's almost 6 years. I've had one. I don't talk about it specifically, but I had one breakup while I was a coach,
I
and
was gonna ask, but I'm like, let me not put him on the spot.
yeah, no, and it wasn't easy, but definitely I know, you know what I mean? I know all the stuff that's going on and how to deal with it. The most important thing, dude, is post breakup is like where your life is as an individual. So if you're really happy with things, like outside of your relationship, it's going to be, I don't like to use the word easier, but like a little bit more smooth, right? Because if you got
Yeah.
a job, you got other things in place that you feel good about. The time that a breakup just crushes you is when, other parts of your life are really low. And the first bad one's always, it's never going to be that bad again.
Yeah, the first
That's,
one for me was definitely tough, and like I felt like every breakup after that was been like it'll suck for a minute, but for the most part, I'm like I'm okay.
I mean, if it's when you're with someone a long time, yeah, it's tough. I'm not going to say it's just like, you deal with the toughness, like just like you would adapt to
Yeah,
anything. So like if you go to the gym, right, like maybe the first month's going to be tough. If you start running, it's like I go on hikes and close to my house at this, I don't know, it's not a high mountain or anything, it's like 5 kilometers, which in the US is like 2.5 miles or something, right? I do it quite often. I'll take some people there, like if someone's visiting or a friend, I'll always be like, you want to go hiking? And some people are like, dude, how do you fucking do this, like in the first 20 minutes? Because they're just winded, they're tired, their legs hurt, they need to take 3 breaks, they need to drink a pound of water. Some guy like poured water all over him, is all dramatic. It's like, how much longer? How much longer? It's like, how do you do this? It's like, because I've been doing it for a couple of years. It's not because yeah, that's it. When I first started, I was like, damn, I'm getting winded. I thought I was in better shape. And during COVID, that was one of the things I just did because it was available. It was close by my house. But like most of the things, it's like drinking. I don't really drink that much anymore. I drink like once or twice a month. And now when I drink, it's like my body's not used to it. I get a bad hangover. I meet other people, like I'm like, how do you drink every day? They're in training, man. Their body
yeah,
adapts to
I
that shit.
can.
You know what I'm saying? So whatever I would say the anxiety thing, it's definitely contributed to where you spend your time. So anxiety's never been a huge problem for me, but when it has come up in my life, I definitely address it. I think exercise is number one, like whatever that is, walking, hiking, whatever, getting outside. And I think that if you have a job you're really unhappy with, that's going to contribute. Social media, those kinds of things. And just realizing that all this stuff pumped out about being rich and about being ultra happy, um, the secret to happiness is being happy with being content or okay with things more than just being happy all the time. Because there's no such thing. Like allow yourself to be in a bad mood or, like,
That's exactly what I did with this situation too. I was like, you know what? I'll let myself feel bad for today, and then I'll be good tomorrow. You
and if
know.
you feel bad again,
And
okay.
I got another like random question for you. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I'm like I like to be very present in my mood because I think a lot of people try to like avoid like certain feelings, but
Yep.
then it's like I feel like if you just be present in the feeling, when it goes away, it'll be less likely to come back because you already let yourself deal with it.
Well, that tapping method that I talk about all the time, EFT, that's a great one because it's like even all right. So
Yeah,
if it was your case, it would be like even though I didn't say what I wanted to say to this girl, whatever her name was, even though I didn't say what I wanted to say to her, I'm okay. I accept it, and I didn't blow up the spot at work, and it didn't affect my job. And then you just go, damn, I wish I would have called her, or I wish I would have said something differently to her. I wish I would have spoke and said the right words in those texts. Damn, I should have sent that text. I'm upset. I'm angry at myself. I'm okay. I'm okay with it. And then you just go through these tapping things, and all you're doing is you're just evening it out in your system that it's okay. Like, and afterwards, your mind, your whole body just goes neutral, because the whole time, dude, you've been like, what you don't realize is how sensitive your energy is when you're tug of warring or ping pong game. I call it. It's like, oh, I should have not said that text. Yeah, I should have. She was really talking to that dude. Oh, if I didn't send that text, maybe we'd be
I
talking
was
to
doing
again.
that too.
Oh, so that what I do with the tapping thing, let's just concentrate on on one thing. Let's accept that you sent the bad text. If that's what you feel now, like, I shouldn't have sent that text. All right. But then we even it out on that other side of the ping pong game with something you can accept. Like, you know what? I'm okay. It didn't cost me my job. I never got into a fight with that dude, and I'm not sure I even liked her that much anyways. Whatever comes up. Now you can even it out. And when I do this with clients, sometimes, like a lot of times, they like it when I lead. I'm pretty good at finding the thing. And when I hit it right, they'll be like, yeah. And now we've evened it out. Now you have your reason that you're okay with it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like a client I had that cheated, and he's eaten himself up by it. We did the tapping. It's like, even though I cheated and I feel like shit, I'm okay. I accept it. And I told her the truth. And he did, which he's regretting now because a bunch of videos say not to do it. But I'm like, but you did tell the truth. You have some value, And then he was like, I did tell the truth. Now that's something you can stand on, right? Like that you can even out that regret with something good. And so what that does with the tapping, and I don't know, it's meridian points that are connected to your heart. It just calms you down. It just gets you down to baseline. That's very good for anxiety. And it's situational. So like if you have something at work and you start to get like, fuck, man, I want to hit this guy or something. It's like, even though I really want to hit this guy right now, I'm all right. I accept it.
Really quick, this got me wondering, have you ever done a breakup coaching where you really had to be honest and say, like, the person definitely deserves to be broken up with?
A great
You don't
question.
have to give details. You don't have to give details. But I'm like, because when you saying that, I'm like, I know you have to be kind of neutral and not really try to lead people. But there has to be a few times where you were like, all right, that was kind of fucked
up. Yes. Short answer, yes. Saying that, there's been people that I give you. All right, so example that comes up to mind, just like we were. It's funny you did this where you start asking me questions, because sometimes clients do this. They want to ask which you couldn't do this with a therapist, right? You couldn't be
Right.
you couldn't be like, hey, what would you do in this? Hey, we don't cross that line. We don't do that, okay? We just talk about you once a week, put it on the then make sure the insurance pays me. So there was the one guy that came to my mind, and he's a great guy. And actually, ironically, he just emailed me today. I don't know what it was about. I just saw it pop up on my screen. And he had come to me for a breakup. This was like 3 or 4 years ago. And you could tell he was like hurt, like that's the difference too. It's like where someone's at. Most of the people I get, because that's the good thing about YouTube. You can kind of tell someone's character that you're choosing, right? Like how they're going to be with you and stuff. So I don't usually get a lot of assholes or people that are like really arrogant or pushy. I think they would go to someone else. I think that, I don't know who that would be, but, so this guy was like hurt, but then he was talking about, he got into like, he hit his girlfriend a few times, and that's just like
a few times.
It's just a thing that I'm like, I find it acceptable. I think it was the first time I came across it as a coach and doing this. And he was so sorry and ashamed of it. And then when we got deeper about it, and I didn't sit there and go, dude, you could never do that. And why'd you do that? You're a piece of shit. No. I was like, well, why'd you do it? And how do you feel about it now? He's like, I feel like shit. I was like, and did that happen during your childhood or something? Because my dad used to hit my mom. Now I could feel some compassion for him because he's doing something that he wants to not happen again. Do you know what I'm saying? Rather than me just snapping to like, oh, dude, you can't do that. I can't deal with you. You're a piece of shit. There's a lot of growth for me too, because if he's going to change, he's got to have someone to tell that to that can accept it and not treat him like a mongrel or a crazy person or an asshole. And he was like, nah, dude, I don't feel good about it. Like I'm wrong. So that was one of those ones that kind of changed me. I have had a few people that they have so many things. Yeah, it is their fault. And I won't say it that way, but I'll ask questions in a way that they come to that conclusion on their own. If that makes sense. Like, you can tell I ask good questions, right? So I won't necessarily, and then I'll say, well, why'd you do that? Where's that coming from? Or did you have a past relationship like that? Probably the biggest one that's hard is that guys that are too nice. That's one that comes up. That's a problem because they're nice guys. They got their shit together. A lot of the nice guys, they have good jobs. They follow the rules. They're conscientious. You know, they dress well. They do these kinds of things. And then they always attract women that are pushy, mean, and rude. And is that their fault? Kinda. Because they're accepting it, right? But it's not my place to just be the guy like, oh, you need to get tougher. I got to listen to all that stuff first. Because it's therapeutic for them. And if they're going to change, I got to ask them more about it so then they can see what they're sharing. Like today, we had to see what you're sharing. Like, you got reflective in the moments, right? Like, you're like, you know what? This is making me think.
Yeah.
So even if that's the case, I never feel like it's a lost cause. I feel like, yeah, you've done something like that. But my job as your coach, and I don't even feel like it's a job, it's like, is to have you make sense of it, number one, so that you can accept it, like whatever it was. Like, there's a client, he wouldn't mind me saying it. He cheated on his girlfriend, like massively cheated on her, and then admitted it to her, and then she never came back. And he was upset for like a year. Why didn't she come back to me? People from the outside are like, dude, a lot of girls won't do that. Right. You know what I mean? Like, but he told the truth, and he beat himself up over it. And he was one of those guys. Both for different reasons, because he went to like 10 different coaches, and ironically, like 3 of the ones that are women told him, why'd you tell the truth? That was stupid.
Yeah. I mean, what was your stance on that? Like,
it's not my place. It's not my
lead people. Yeah.
No, it's not my place to tell you what your morals are. That's something I've learned. So obviously, if your morals are like off the fucking scales and you shoot people or something, it's like, well, you know what I mean? But if you, like, the thing about cheating, it's done way more than you think. It's been going on since the beginning of time. We're the only animals in nature besides penguins that stay with one person. And then all the kings and queens and presidents and leaders, they fuck around the most. They're the rule makers. It's like, so, I mean, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm not saying it's shocking. Like, oh my God, someone's cheating. It's like, no, it's actually way more common. You know what I mean? Like, it's temptatious. So my thing for him is just to get rid of that guilt but also be proud that you told the truth. Oh yeah, there's plenty of guys out there that didn't tell the truth and got through that relationship, and there's plenty of women, by the way, that would say like, I don't want to know the truth. Don't tell me.
I've seen that.
Yeah, I've known women like that. Like, why was he so stupid to get caught? Like, it's not my job to decide what the fucking right move is. That's so easy, hindsight. Oh yeah, like I got this book that has all the tactics for every fucking move. It's like, great idea to scale all that information, and it's good. Some of it's useful, but you got to figure out why we just got deep on you. We got to figure out why you did that. Like, why'd you do that? What were your reasons? When we got deeper with him, he wasn't really happy in the relationship. He's only 22 years old. He was looking for what, you know what I mean? And make sense of it. But also, like, if you feel this shitty about it, don't do it again.
Right.
Now you know. So like there's a silver lining in everything like that. But to get back to your original question, so I'm never like, oh, this guy really fucked up, man. I mean, some stories that I hear, oh my goodness. Like,
I bet.
But I don't react in a way that I'm like, because the worst thing you can do when you're in a therapeutic position, I didn't know this when I was young, is to make it a big deal. Oh man, like you didn't. Yeah, or pity. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, man. Oh, that wasn't right. It's more like, okay.
Yeah, just thinking about it, I really appreciated that part of this. You were just like, okay.
I felt it. You probably felt that I felt it too, and I addressed it, but I didn't make a big deal out of it because you've probably had other people make deals out. You know what I'm saying? You that's an old one. That's something you've been through. So, that's something I've learned, that just listening to someone without judgment or reaction about certain things is fine. But then there's some people, especially when we have multiple coachings, like they want to be more like, hey, like I can joke around with you. It's something you wouldn't get from a therapist, right? Like we don't have to be fucking serious all the time. We can loosen some of this stuff up. Like a few times you had a laugh here, like about like, actually, you know, this thing, I can do that because I'm not following some rule book. That's my benefit of not diagnosing you with, I think after talking to you, I think you might have ADHD.
Anxious attachment.
I'm just saying, like
what the fuck?
I mean, it's possible, you know, like those kinds of things, but I don't think it helps you. I think just like, because you're just like all those things that we just went through, those are just little pieces of you, dude. You know, like those little moments, you know, passing the papers out to the kids in class. You're like, I don't know why this is coming up. It's part of you. You know, like all those moments, dude, are culminated into your thoughts. Like it's really interesting. Because then when you go, oh, that's where it comes from. Oh, that's where I kind of, and that middle school fight or whatever you had with the chick, that's probably one of the things. It probably is. Like you, and if you hit her or something like that, and you know, like you blocked it, you probably got in trouble over it. It's probably something that's helping you block, and you don't think it's directly related, but it's affecting it. So you would, you know, you'd go through that and be like, even though when I was in middle school and I hit that girl, you might laugh about it now, not because you were proud of it because you got in a fight with a girl, but like, man, I've been carrying this a whole long time. That was stupid. I'm okay now. I accept it. I'm sorry for what I did. A lot of it's people don't forgive themselves. That's why, you know, that they don't forgive themselves, because really when you get into the breakups, you know, sometimes a breakup is good. It's just that you need to make sense of it, and you need to make honor the fact that you're sad. There's some people that refuse to be hurt. I'm like that. I don't cry much. I don't show my, like, I'm just built like that. Doesn't mean I'm tough. It's just
I'm like that too.
I wasn't rewarded. I always said I wasn't rewarded when I was young to cry. So like we didn't do that. Like when, you know, dad would give you like a stare or something. Like you wouldn't get something for that. So, you know, like people are built different. It's like sometimes I've had girlfriends that's like, God, you don't even cry ever. You don't even get a. It's like it's not a good thing. Sometimes crying's good for you. Like getting emotion up, it's clearing it out.
Yeah,
It's
there's
somewhere out
definitely
of
times I
you.
wish I could have cried about something. I just couldn't.
I've become better at it. That tapping thing
You
helps
said something about
sometimes. Breathing
yeah.
helps. Breathing a certain way, like
Oh, it helps you
that's
cry.
an underrated thing. Just breathing right. What was your question? I lost you for a minute.
Mm. Uh, uh, because you brought up forgiveness, and I was gonna that was one of the questions I was gonna ask you randomly. Is that do you feel like doing this like well not just this but just in generally speaking too like do you feel like your capacity for forgiveness as if you've gotten older has changed a little bit?
Absolutely, 1000%.
There was another part of that question
It
but I
was
forgot I lost it but yeah yeah but that's kind of like what I was asked like if just about your capacity for forgiveness and how it has affected as you gotten older.
yeah, and the number one way it became that way is um great example that guy that I brought up that hit his girlfriend before, but like I was able to stick with him on the call. He also told me he had to witness his dad doing some bad things to it. You know what I mean? So does that give me more
Yeah,
compassion? Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't in his situation. You know what I mean? Does that mean he's totally off the hook? He's a great guy? No. But I didn't live his life. I didn't grow up the way he grew up. That's the number one thing everyone's needed to understand. If we had a timeline of all your life, Skinner, if we had a timeline of all Riflint's life, you'd be shocked and you'd have compassion for everyone because you'd be like, wow, that was kind of shitty what happened to her. Or what that's kind of, I've had so many people tell me personal things that I'm like, damn, I'm not the only one that's had stuff happen. You know what I mean? Like, we all
yeah.
have
And
stuff that
I'd imagine we. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
it's okay.
I was gonna say you. I can imagine too that I'm pretty sure there's times we can look back in our lives. Somebody felt like you were the villain in their story too. I
Oh,
know because
dude,
man,
trust me.
because
It was
I
funny.
just think
It's
like,
funny you brought this
oh,
up
go ahead.
because I
Yeah.
just did this personality test and it was like online, like a $9 one. Someone had recommended it to me. It was like 20 minutes. And I'm thinking about doing this for people with breakups, but um my compassion thing was like 95 out of 100. And I was telling my mom about that. My mom's like, that wouldn't be you 10 years ago. And I was like, yeah, I know. Like, it wouldn't be bad. It wouldn't be low, but it wouldn't be that high. It wouldn't be like my highest score. My other thing was like extroversion was like 93, like outgoing, and emotional stability, like being able to handle, like we're very high. But the interesting thing about that, definitely the jobs I've had and the people I've dealt with have definitely contributed to that uh, level of like compassion and empathy. And I would add what you mentioned earlier about not making a scene or being dramatic. You could do it without it. I think I do it without it being dramatic. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like you can do it in your own way without making it a movie scene or reality TV the way people do
Yeah, because
now.
I hate it because I think about like I think about every like Corey Wayne's voice pop in my head like, oh guys, that's supposed to be you're supposed to be fun and James Bond all the So it's like, oh, you know what I think? You know what what made me think about that is I feel like there's so much information out here that it causes
Mm,
people to like almost not have their own personality with how to do stuff. Oh damn, my AirPods.
I I agree. That's
Here,
actually yeah.
yeah, my AirPods died. But yeah, there's. I think that's affected me too. Just like all this information out here, because a part of not wanting to be vulnerable is you think of like you think about shit you see Corey Wayne saying stuff. You would think you could never show emotion, you know.
Yeah, I
I'm not
would
just
say
blaming Corey Wayne for this. I'm just saying like,
no.
wait, hold on, let me wait, say something.
That's much better. That's much better.
Okay, there we go.
It's 10 times better. Yeah, it was getting scratchy there. To your point, what you just said. First of all, I like Corey Wayne. I came across his work when I first was on YouTube and stuff like that, and I thought this is a cool dude. I like his approach. I would say that some people, especially like being that the book's been, you know, so sold and like read it 15 times, that some people have lost the ability to improvise in dates, issues, because they're following the book. So like guys will be like, one of the things, I've read the book once, but I definitely don't know it by heart. I thought it's good information. It's very simplistic, but it's direct advice, which is good. And I would agree with a lot of stuff. But one of the things was, like you have to hook up the first or second date, I think. Is that, and a couple of my clients that are like 22, 23, like, they're like, dude, you have to. I'm like, what? Who told you this? Like, why are you? I'm like, if you're gonna meet a woman that's your girlfriend and you don't want a high body count and you like want all these things, do you think she's gonna like want to bang you in 2 dates, or do you think she's gonna want to like make you date her if you know what I mean? I'm like, you don't have to have that rule, and you can still be, you know, masculine or attractive or whatever. Like some of those rules, I think you should leave. You should be able to improvise because they don't apply to every situation. But for the most part, a lot of the principles are good. But like, you also have to think like, am I Corey Wayne? He's constantly giving advice.
And also, I just feel like
in third person, you know, like this is what I do. I try to learn you. Like if you're not, me and you are different, maybe. So I wouldn't tell you like, you got to do this, this, and this. It's like, what do you want? What are you looking for? What's your problems? What's your gatekeepers? Like today, I would call that a gatekeeper we went through. Like, you have this problem, it keeps coming up. And then the gatekeepers would be like, that first breakup, maybe some of the other issues about being depressed, like that cinema incident. Those might be the things that are like all contributing to the problem. That's not in any book. That's in the book of you. Like, so if you take book information or other information and then size it up with you and like, oh, I can't figure out how to become more like James Bond. Well, maybe you never are or want to be James Bond. That's not something like, if I had to pick a character to identify with that I wanted to be like, I probably wouldn't pick James Bond, but I get it. I get what he means. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's definitely, there's right now more than ever before, there's a lot of people getting really, especially the younger generation, because you guys watch so much content that it's confusing. And then suddenly it becomes like, I did the wrong thing. I made the wrong move here. It's like, no. Even when you get rejected or you made the bad move, you learn something. And you might even be able to like, you know, turn it into a positive. Just like if you get rejected by, like if you ask a girl out at work or something like that, your opportunity in that situation is to prove to her that you're okay with being rejected. Okay. That's actually attractive. Because you know how many of them deal with guys that are like, oh, why not? Or what's up? It's like, that's annoying. That's guilt ridden. It's like if you ask a girl out and then she's like, no, I don't think it's a good idea. It's like, okay. I wouldn't even say like, hey, give me a call later on if you change your mind. I wouldn't say that. It's just cheesy. It's just like some canned line or something. And guys have that on deck all the time. Let me know if you change your mind. I told them, and I know exactly where they get it from.
So glad.
And it's okay. It's not bad. It's just canned. You know, it's like like I would just say, okay, cool. You're going to probably say it in text, right? You're not going to even say it in person because that's how all forms of communication are generally done. So it's actually being okay with the part, like what you said, like nothing to be afraid of, and then honor that. And like, making the right moves though, or making the right Like if you say this, this, and this, what they're not saying is, yeah, for the right girl,
Yeah, because
you're erasing like if you go by that book, right? Maybe there's a girl that's like really conservative. She's a librarian. She reads books. She's an introvert. She's really cute. She's cool. She's not going to be okay with this. Like, oh, second date, you got to make it. You know what I mean? Like, so you just erase that option because of this protocol you're following. That's the part that messes some people up. I think that you're going to get more of the same type of partner by doing that. Ironically, because I coach women too, women are taught similar things, like to be mysterious, to be misleading.
yeah,
So you think like, because as guys, we're like, oh, we're reading these books, we got all that, and I'm like, one woman I was coaching, she's like, oh yeah, just I'm trying to mislead him, be mysterious. I'm like, so who's gonna win this? You
yeah,
guys are both trying to.
exactly. It's like you got all these strategies, and like, what if you like two people really want to talk to each other, but they're both like, oh, we're both gonna do like obviously no contact is a good strategy, but I mean like if all the advice is telling everybody to do no contact, how is anybody ever gonna talk to each other?
No contact's just when, like when you're at a point where you guys are doing the same things over and over again, you're hurting each other, you're
Yeah,
broken up already, like the alternative to chasing or being redundant. It's more for a breakup, right? But like when people are dating and stuff, I think that what wins the day is being genuine and being yourself, and then, being okay with like not being liked or not doing something right. That's actually attractive, because when you can show that, even when you think about people you like at work, it's the people that are genuine. It's the people that like are comfortable with who they are. It should be attraction's very high on dating, but also just being with someone that's comfortable with themselves. And that's a process as you get older. And that's what you're doing right now. Like you're 28, like you're looking back at things and you're like, all right, I'm different now. Like all those things we looked at, you kind of go into them for a moment, and then you reshape them a little bit by just going over them right now. And now they're not as heavy. Those moments aren't as heavy. They're just moments. They're not who you are right now. They're attributing to who you are, but they're not making decisions for you. All right, you got any final questions? Sorry, I'm going on.
I was just gonna say, man, like it's unfortunate because there's all these breakup coaches out here, but I feel like you give the best. Like you're like the advice is nuanced. You're like really
Thank
you
you.
really get into it. It's not like oh I have this kit that I come up with this curriculum and then I'm gonna tell you how to. It's like you treat people like humans, and you know what? I took that jab at Margaret at the beginning, but that was because I almost felt like it's almost like they have a before the session even started. I felt like she knew what she was gonna say.
And to be fair to Margaret, I think Margaret passed away.
Oh,
Did
really?
she? Someone else told me that. I don't know, because I don't follow like Craig Kenneth
Yeah, I don't
closely.
follow Chris
That's his.
anymore.
He's a sidekick, or he's the original. But someone else that did quite a bit of coaching, like went to like 20 coaches. Very analytical guy. He might come on here sometime because he follows the live stream. He liked her, and he said like compared to some of the other ones, but the other guy that you just mentioned, some people have not liked repeatedly. I don't know. They told me that they felt like they were being
I
directed.
heard he led it a bit. I saw a
You got to
comment
do
say
this. You have to do this. You have to do that. You got to do this. And one of my clients was like, he showed up to the like the video or the FaceTime with like his pajamas on, or like his t-shirt and his shorts. It's like paying $400, dude. Whatever it was. He was like, dude, it was
I think
really
that's probably
unprofessional. I
why
was shocked.
that it deserved to be. Because
Yeah,
man,
he
it
was
was
he was go ahead.
I was just saying it was expensive, and it was like, man, I felt like it didn't help me. I don't know. I'm not like I don't know. It just didn't help me. I don't feel like.
Well, thanks for the compliment. Yeah, like it's coming together. All my clients always tell me that. They're always like, "Oh man, like try this for marketing, try that. I don't understand. Someone was telling, like, I think part of it is the live streams too, like, because people don't watch live streams for too long. They got to be a part of them. You know, that I give away, some other clients, like, I think you give away too much. I'm
Yeah.
like, whatever. That's what he told me. He's like, you got to create a situation where they like want to call you. You're giving, like, a few clients said that, like, you give away too much information. They don't need to call you after you tell them everything. Whatever. It's fine. I'm not, like, the clients I have now, a lot of them, what's evolving for me more than just like a breakup coach is people come back to me for their other stuff. Like, you know, like right now we had a good session. I would call that a session that we talked about your stuff.
Yeah.
And then if you want to talk to me in the future or something about something else or about work, like, we can talk about that and you're comfortable. So it's already built. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're like, all right, I can, like, I'm your coach or your therapist, or you can talk to me about other things. And now I've got 3 clients that see me regularly. Like, one guy's once a week for a year. He keeps telling me he wants to like make a commercial because he's doing really well. And it's not just about breakups, it's about his life. And then I just picked up another one that same thing. He's like, dude, I was seeing a therapist, but I'd rather talk to you. So I like that.
That's a big compliment in my opinion.
It is. It is too, because yeah, I like talking about things more. I don't mind talking about breakups because they lead to everything else. You know what I mean? I don't mind. I have a sickness, but you know, talking about your life and stuff. I don't know. Maybe me and you have stuff in common. Like you said, you like to ask good questions, and you're a conversationalist too. It's part of what I do. So it'll move. Yeah. Yeah. I think the other thing is, if I don't have, when I do coaching clients, when I have coaching clients, if I don't have someone behind you, I'll let you ride for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I think there's a lot to that. Sometimes, you know, like, not limiting you to an hour when you're talking about your stuff.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're just getting, it's like, oh, time's up. Can you book another one? You know, it's like, it's like a stream of information that's coming out of you where you get more comfortable. So I think that helps people, like, doing a longer thing. So one thing you might want to try for you is we do the tapping and the hypnotherapy one time. The hypnotherapy will be good for you. You visualize well?
I think so. I like to draw, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do it, like, if you want to do one in the future for it's really good. It's not what the movies and everything think about it, especially if you're a visual person. You're definitely a feeling-based person. I think. You say you're aloof and stuff, but some of the ways you were feeling about those questions and you were thinking about it, maybe you keep it in, but
yeah, I think that's what it is.
But you know what?
Quiet, but then when I start talking, I talk a lot.
Well, dude, you're on a live stream on YouTube and you let out a whole lot right now, right?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at myself.
It's all right. Well, this has been really good, man. Keep in contact. You can shoot me an email if you have, like, if you do come up with that story or some kind of things from what we talked about, and you want to, like, be like, hey, this came up in my thought. Email me, coachmacmccarthy@gmail.com, and thanks for coming on the live stream and contributing. I appreciate you, but it's been, you've been in the shadows for a while on the live stream, and I've never talked to you. It's been a privilege, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it, man.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, we'll be in contact, bud. Have a good sleep.
I'm out of here.
Late.
All right.